Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Village of Royal Palm Beach Council. It is November the 21st, 2024. It is 6:30 p.m. I want to ask everyone if they would join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, and if you remain standing for a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Standing for a moment of silence. You know, today we had a tragic accident occur out on Southern Boulevard. We lost two Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office deputies who lost their lives in the line of duty. A third one is I believe, still in critical condition in the ICU. These brave individuals have dedicated their lives and now given their lives to protecting and serving our community. Their loss is deeply felt by all of us. So let us take a moment of silence and respect for them and for their loved ones. Thank you very much. Please be seated.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay, thank you very much again for coming this evening and for spending that moment of silence in recognition of lives that were given for this community. Diane, let the record show that the members of council are present. However, Group 3 seat remains vacant at this time. And this evening, we are going to start off with a presentation from PalmTran. And we want to welcome the new executive director for PalmTran, Ivan Maldonado. Ivan, if you would like to come up and share some update with us, a little bit about your background. It'd be a great way to start off. And by the way, Ivan actually was with us for the Veterans Day ceremony that we had here in Royal Palm Beach. And that's because he is indeed an Army veteran. So we share that. And we also share the experience of Washington, D.C. traffic. So hopefully he'll bring some expertise here that'll avoid that for us. Ivan, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks everyone here, each of you council members. Let me introduce myself a bit, if you don't mind. I am the new executive director of PalmTran, have been on the job for about 4 months. Happy to be back in Florida. Previous to this opportunity, I worked as the executive director of Star Metro in Tallahassee, worked as a director of transportation at the Hillsborough Regional Transit Authority. I was also the director of operations at the Washington Metro Transit System. And just recently, I came from being the deputy executive officer at the Omaha Regional Transportation Authority. So I have a pretty good understanding of Florida and the services that we need here. I am just happy to be here, and we had a great opportunity, the mayor and myself, talking about services and that sort of thing. So today, what I want to do, since I don't want to speak out of my element, being that I'm fairly new in the agency, what I want to share with you, first of all, that we are here to open to listen from you, to learn about your desires when it comes to transportation services. And as I said before, we are trying to gauge our community here from the different municipalities, learn how we can work together to enhance services for the citizens that we serve. But I'm going to introduce Yash Nagal. He's a director of planning who is going to actually do the presentation. And I might be able to answer other questions that you may have.
Great, thank you. And welcome again. Yash, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, Council members. My name is Yash Nagal. I'm the Director of Transit Planning. If we could queue up the PowerPoint. No, this is locked. Oh, that one? It's that one, up there. Yep. So I'll jump right into the agenda. So for the agenda today, we'll do a little bit of overview of what our system is. We'll talk a little bit about the busling program overall, and then also how it's been going in the Royal Palm Beach area. We'll talk about some of the fixed route improvements that we've done recently. We also want to talk a little bit about the capital improvement plan, the bus shelters that we have coming up. And then from there, we'll talk what Palm Tran could look like in 10, 15, 20 years as we go into the future. So it's been a really exciting time at Palm Tran. We recently went from 3 services, which were our fixed route buses, the bigger buses, the connection vehicle, the ADA service that we have, and Go Glades that operates as an on-demand model in the Glades, to actually 5 modes of services. The 4th one being the express commuter service that now runs from Port St. Lucie down to downtown West Palm Beach. 2 trips in the morning, 2 trips in the evening. And then the 5th one being the busling program that we're going to talk about today. So the origin of the busling program really came from us looking into our mission statement. Our mission statement is to provide access to opportunity safely, efficiently, and courteously. And this program looks at the efficiency part of that. So when we talk about fixed route efficiency, 2 of the things that we looked at were route directness, from point A to point B, how direct is my journey going to be if I'm going from my origin to my destination. And then the second thing that we looked at was productivity of our fixed route system. This is the number of passengers that you have on a vehicle per hour. So like the bulk of your ridership. And we essentially want more people to travel together. That's how we kind of get into efficiency. So when we looked into those 2 factors, we found that there were 3 routes that performed low on those metrics. The first one was Route 21 in Riviera Beach. The second one was Route 52. That's right here in Royal Palm Beach. And the third one was Route 92 in Boca Raton. So we came up with the idea of 3 bustling zones. What these zones are essentially is that this is our first partnership with the TNC voucher type of company. So we have a partnership with Uber and the local taxi company, where in these low demand, low density areas, we're able to provide an $8 voucher instead of the fixed route. And what these vouchers do is they act as a first and last mile solution. So you can utilize these vouchers to link to the high volume, high frequency fixed route system. And that's kind of where the bustling part came from. In terms of how it works pretty similar to how you would use a general Uber app. You just go into the app using a link from Palm Tran, and the voucher would automatically appear. So there's not much that you have to do. We also have QR codes on the bus stops for people to directly scan and get to that point. You can also do it from our website. So we've tried to make it as convenient as possible for this program to work. The average cost that we've seen to us has been $7 now, comparing all the rides that we've seen. We're at a total of 7,755 trips. That's the total number of trips that we've had since the inception. We started the pilot program on September 3rd. So this is basically from that point. And then 532 is the number of unique users. So these are the individuals that are accessing the programs outside of with the total trips too. And the way this program has worked for us has been, the usage has been 69% in Riviera Beach. So that's the bulk of the usage for the bustling program. In terms of Royal Palm Beach, that's been 25% of the entire usage. So what that looks like in terms of unique users is about 133 unique users, and then close to about 2,000 trips in the area. I also want to talk about some of the fixed route improvements that we've done in the area. So in addition to Buslink, We've also improved our Route 40 that runs all the way from Belglades into downtown West Palm Beach through this area. Previously, this route was running every 60 minutes. Now it runs every 30 minutes. So we've doubled the frequency. It's a lot more frequent. And we did this in conjunction with the busling program because the idea is that you would use the voucher to get to a high-frequency mass transit route. So you have the ease of first and last mile, and then you're connecting to a high-frequency route. The route previously also traveled through Southern Boulevard. Now we've changed it to go north on State Road 7 and then go east on Okeechobee. So there was a section of Okeechobee and State Road 7 that was previously not served. So if you're in that area now, you sort of have that one-seat ride right into downtown in the peak hours in the morning and the peak hours in the evening. And if you live around it, you can also use the busling program to access that bus stop. In the recent past too, another improvement that we've done is we've increased the Route 43 that runs on Okeechobee primarily from Wellington Mall through this area into downtown. We made it every 20 minutes from every 30 minutes. This was done almost a couple of years ago, but we did a comparison from that time to now, and the ridership on this route is about 50% up. So it's been a really good improvement because of the improvement of frequency. Frequency, of course, is freedom. The more number of times you can access something, the higher you have a chance of accessing it. These are just some scenarios of how the busling can work. So the first scenario or the first example is from Royal Palm Beach High School, and it's connecting to a previous Route 52 stop. So Route 52 is not in the region anymore, but those bus stops are still busling bus stops. So those bus stops are still accessible through busling. They're just not accessible through the previous fixed route. So from that bus stop, you could utilize the voucher to get to a Route 40 stop and then continue your journey. The second example is an old Route 52 bus stop that doesn't have fixed route on it, but still has bus link. So you can use that to access the Route 43 that runs in the region and then continue your journey. And the third one is a unique example, and this is the new access that people have gotten. This is a location that previously was not on the fixed route system at all. It was not on Route 52, not on Route 43, not on Route 40, any of those. This is an area that is inside the zone, and you can basically, from anywhere inside the zone, connect to a bus stop and continue your journey. So previously, these people that were living inside the zone, not on a bus stop, had to basically pay for the entire Uber if they wanted to connect to a fixed route, but now they don't have to. They have an $8 advantage basically that they can use and connects to the fixed route to move forward. Some of the reinvestments that we've done into our system to increase the frequency have panned out. Route 3, this route runs on Military from Gardens Mall all the way down to Boca. The route is up almost 15% in ridership. Route 33 is another example of how the first and last mile services is working in conjunction with the busling program. So this route is the route that runs in Riviera Beach inside the busling zone. So this route is up about 39%. That's sort of an example of how people are connecting from a first and last mile program into a fixed route program. And then the Route 40 that runs in this area, since the improvement of its frequency, is also up above 15%. In addition to the fixed route service, we also have Palm Trend Connection, the ADA service that runs in the area. Just if we look in the last year, inside the busling zone, we've had about 32,000 pickups and about 33,000 drop-offs. Considering each of these as a trip, I think we estimate somewhere around $50 a trip. So if you consider both of these, the total goes a little north of $3 million. So that's an investment in terms of the paratransit system, in addition to the ones that I've talked about, the fixed route. So moving on to our capital improvements program too. The number one capital improvement, of course, that we want to do in the next 5 years is bus shelters. Our plan is to add 250 new bus shelters throughout the county. We want to be able to replace 100 of them in addition to the new ones. We also want to have real-time information on the screens that would be on the pole so you can find out when your next bus is arriving. We want to add solar lights, both for convenience and safety as a feature. And we want to do somewhere near 1,000 ADA improvements in that time period too. And we have a lot of grant funding available for these programs, so we're very optimistic to start this journey. So this slide kind of talks about what Palm Trend can look 10, 20, 25 years from now. So we, in conjunction with our transportation planning agency, they have their long-range transportation plan. We have our transit development plan. So through both of these programs, what we've done is plan out, as funding becomes available, how do we want the system to look? So we want to have new mobility on demand zones. We want to have something that's bus rapid transit. That's where a bus runs in a dedicated lane of its own and high frequency. So you can carry a lot of people. A best example of that is Okeechobee. So if you have east-west travel where you know that the people are commuting every day, this is a really good way to cut that travel time down because you're not in the same lane with everybody in traffic. And then there's also a lot of increase in frequency that we want to be able to do throughout the system and the increase in span. We have a lot of routes that don't necessarily run super late at night and don't start very early in the morning. So the idea would be to increase that as well as increase the frequency at which these routes run. And then lastly, we have a lot of pockets of housing that we know that are traveling into large economic centers. So we want to be able to add more express routes like Port St. Lucie into the county where we know that people are going in one direction from one place. So that's sort of the hub and spoke model that we want to be able to move towards. And with that, I want to thank you for your patience. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Great. Council have any questions? Comments?
Go ahead. I'll go after you. Oh, okay. Thank you for your presentation. Appreciate that. I had a question about some of the opportunities with the shared ride. You had one option that was shared, and I'm imagining that's 2, 3, or 4 people who don't know each other.
Take that option, yes.
So are there safety guards in place to ensure security and safety of these riders who don't know each other and who are getting into a shared ride situation?
There are not, but the option for the share ride is just one of the options. It doesn't have to be picked. It's up to the passenger if they want to. I think if I go back to so the other Uber options that are in there too, the passenger can pick those if they did feel that they were not safe or if they felt unsafe sharing a ride with somebody else. We also have a taxi cab option. In the taxi cab option, the operators have to go through a more rigorous drug and alcohol policy testing too. So that is another option if you didn't want to do Uber, or if you didn't want to do share rides. That's kind of the third option available too. But in terms of Uber, the Uber system works like any other Uber would work. There's no added Palm Trend security to that. It's just a voucher that we're accessing through them.
Okay, thank you.
Elena?
Yeah.
Add to that one, and I think you just touched on the taxi cab option. As Josh just mentioned, it's an added level of security that we have to make sure they meet the Florida Department of Transportation criteria from background, drug and alcohol, and that sort of thing. So if there's a citizen that is concerned about safety, for example, that may be a better option for them to be able to schedule a taxi cab rather than an Uber. And I know that sometimes that is a concern for citizens.
Is there a cost differential that is large, or is the cost about the same?
They're both the same. The vouchers are both the same. The only difference with taxi is the ADA, the wheelchair access. So if it's a wheelchair trip, they get a $15 subsidy instead of an $8 subsidy.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Selena?
Yep, and go ahead.
Let me clarify that. If you could clarify that answer. The voucher is the same amount, that's the $8 and the $15, but the cost of the ride is different.
Yeah, it would be depending on whatever their.
And it would be more expensive. The voucher that Palm Trend gives is the same amount, but the actual, if you choose a non-shared ride, that would be more than a shared ride.
Right.
And we've touched on the topic of safety, and that's always been a concern, and we talked about this the last time you gave a presentation, and also with your predecessor that was here with Mr. Forbes. So Uber does offer shared rides where you can get together and do that to lower the cost. The other issue is, and back on your screen that you have up there, you have a $96 route. So is that in addition to the $8? Because an Uber X is not 96 cents. Nobody's coming out for that.
That's the addition to the.
So that's the addition to your
over,
$8 that you're going to pay. Okay. The other thing, we talked about safety. So when you have the yellow taxi, that's a private service. Uber, you know, you're on your own with that. You take a risk regardless of when you're in a car with an individual that you don't know. And something that I've expressed to you when we spoke as well is when you have students. So we have bus stops in front of our schools. I noticed on this presentation you did not mention Palm Beach Gardens, and same thing. You've removed the services there and they have to use that, and it's in front of all the high schools. So, you know, you have a 15-year-old girl who gets out of soccer practice, it's dark outside because it's December, and she's getting in an Uber by herself instead of with her friends in a bus where they go their separate ways. So I've always expressed my concern about that. The other issue is our senior population. They do not want to download an app. They were very fine using the bus route that we had before. The issue is we've offered that where we were doing a voucher to Uber. They had to come into our rec center, download the app, we would show them how to use it, and then we would send them on their way with a voucher. We had one person who did that. What they do now is they come into the rec center and they ask the staff to help them do all of this. So they're not downloading apps, they're not using it. In addition, because the route has also increased as well. So when you've cut off some of the routes, you've also increased the rates that individuals have to pay. I love the bus shelters. I love the fact that the technology is there that you're putting on that. I've fought for years to get bus shelters in the village just in time for you guys to take the stops away, so thank you very much. But they do look beautiful. And then, so those are my concerns. I've seen people out there, they're getting frustrated, they're trying to wait, and I understand it's new technology and we're working through the kinks. But those are my concerns, is when you have our senior population and our students that are coming out, and now you're telling them, get in an Uber by themselves in the dark, and they're on their own. So those are my concerns, and I've expressed those too. We've even talked about maybe in the front of the schools having different routes. So maybe on the way to school hours and on the way back, that if there's a way of alternating it so that I understand it's not cost effective to have them running all the time, but if there's something like that that can happen, just to give a parent a peace of mind knowing that your child's already on their own as it is. So thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you for your comments.
If I may add, as Mr. Nagel, Josh just presented concerning our connection transportation, something that this county does beyond probably any other county in this entire state is that our paratransit services are probably the greatest one in the whole of Florida. We provide about 4,000 trips every single day of folks who are transportation disadvantaged, the elderly, disabled, through Connection Plus. So if you know of a person who meets that criteria, elderly or transportation disadvantage, we may be able to assist through that program. We're moving in the direction of trying to create alternative transportation options that would allow us to probably take some of the funding that we may be able to save here to reallocate back into fixed route services. As we mentioned earlier, this is a pilot project. As it is right now, is funded through the Florida Department of Transportation. It gives us the opportunity to gauge how these services could augment our existing services and also reinvest back into our fixed route system. And as Josh mentioned earlier, we were able to identify now services that have improved because we now have increased the frequency in other areas. But we will continue to look and monitor services in this area. We would love to come back and present again and show you and provide you the data for you to be able to say, hey, this works or this doesn't work. And we want to hear that from you as well. And we're open to any discussion, dialogue, or concerns. And I'll be glad to come back here anytime and present. So thank you for this great opportunity.
We appreciate that. Rich, did you have anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to commend you. As you just mentioned, I have a younger brother who's 31 years old now, and he's disabled. And one of the joys of his day is when he goes from my mom's house in Jupiter up to Tequesta on the Palm Tran bus that comes. They come, get him from his wheelchair, lift him up in the thing, and he just loves it. So, and my mom says the service is reliable and has been very impressed with it. So please, you're right when you were absolutely right when you're saying it does above and beyond what I've ever seen in any other communities, and I hope you can keep that going forward and maybe even expand a bit. But thank you, especially for that, because that's a difficult part of the population to serve, and it seems to me that you're serving it beyond well. So good job.
Thank you. So I have a question. Since this is a pilot program, other than listening to the comments you heard up here, how do you get feedback?
So we get feedback through our customer service department. That's one of them. We get feedback through social media. That's another medium. We're hoping to put out a survey soon too, to test out all the new services that we've dropped. So there are multiple arenas of getting feedback. The biggest feedback that we have heard till now has been the confusion around the bus link part and the Uber part. So we've had to do a lot of education about the program is bus link. In other words, don't try to take your entire trip on Uber because that's going to cost you a lot of money. What we're recommending is take the first mile and the last mile of that trip on Uber and take the large part of the trip on the mass transit system. So that's kind of been the biggest education piece that we've seen.
And how are you getting that education out to people?
It's been just basically through like customer to customer. So our customer service people, as the calls come in, like that's how they educate them.
Okay, all right, all right.
There's been some social media information as well. But, you know, we would gladly work with your marketing folks or even your planning team to dialogue and come up with ideas or to make it more accessible to folks out there so they know what it's all about and how we can, you know, help improve services in this area.
Right, well, it is definitely a pilot program, which means it's open to, and you, I'm assuming, going to make changes as you go and eventually decide whether or not to keep this basic idea or do something different to better serve the public, right? So, Ray?
I'd like to ask a question about the options on the first mile and where to get dropped off. So the current route, or the old Route 52, went to State Road 7, Okeechobee, down to the mall and looped out Southern Boulevard. And then down Belvedere, and it took a while for it to get to downtown. Can people from Royal Palm Beach get on the Uber and get dropped off at the bus stop over by Sainsbury Way, which has a bus at that point that goes directly to downtown West Palm Beach and would cut off probably 45 minutes to an hour of their trip? Can they do that?
I would have to go back and check which specific bus stop this is.
That would be, it's the route, it's the bus stop out on further east on Okeechobee, down near Sainsbury Way. And it's a different route. It's not Route 52. Route 52 goes down
Route 40,
Belvedere.
I think.
You're right. So if somebody from Royal Palm Beach could get their Uber and get dropped off at that bus stop, then they could get directly downtown West Palm Beach significantly quicker than getting dropped off at the mall and then coming back up and going through Belvedere and all those stops. So that would be a significant enhancement to the Royal Palm Beach trip from here to downtown West Palm Beach.
I think that is the same bus stop that Chris from your office talked about. So if that is the same bus stop, then yes, because we did add that bus stop in.
Oh, you did add it?
Yeah.
Oh, very good. Thank you.
And it was for the reason that you mentioned, because it was cutting down a lot of time for people who were going east.
Yeah. Okay, good. Very good. Thank you.
Very much. And you got another question?
About fees, so that those who ride their bikes right now, they can put them on front of the buses. What happens if I ride my bike that I need it for the next stop? Do I get the same service as if I were in a wheelchair, or do I have to, how do I get my bike on the Uber, or which service do I need for that?
I don't think that the bike can go on the Uber. And I think we had discussions on this before we started the program too, and we looked into a lot of other programs. And we looked at how other first and last mile programs are working. And the concept was, because it is a first and last mile program, you're using this to do the first and last mile of your trip. So you wouldn't necessarily have a bike. But that is a good point to bring up. We don't change anything in terms of how Uber operates, in terms of their rule. So if today there's an Uber vehicle that you call and it doesn't take a bike, then it will work the same way. So that's kind of a non-answer answer, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay, but something to consider though too, because I may not need the bike now to get from my home to the bus stop, but I'm going to need it from where the bus drops me off to where I'm going from there. And especially if you want me to use it going downtown and I have lots of appointments downtown, I can take the bus down there, but I can't.
Right, I get your point, yes, yep. Thank you for the comment.
Any other comments or questions? If not, we thank you both very much and welcome aboard once again.
Thank you so
We
much.
appreciate having you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great evening.
You too.
Okay, next agenda item is council reports. Let's begin with Selena.
Good evening, everyone. It's so nice to see everybody here. We have our Young at Heart meets, they have their lunch in the first Friday of the month, and we consistently have 265 attendees, so it's great to see how that program has grown. We do have 30 people on the wait list as it is already, so it's neat to see so many people come in. In addition to the senior breakfast and lunches, they have a couple trips coming up. So the end of February, they're doing a cruise on Margaritaville at Sea to the Bahamas, and then in mid-May, they're doing a trip down to Miami and Key West. Commons Park, we have a couple of concerts coming up. So Friday, December 6th, we have Living on a Prayer, which is a Bon Jovi cover band. And on the 20th, it's the Petty Hearts, so a Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers tribute band. December 7th is our Winterfest. It's on Saturday from 2 p.m. to 9 p.m., and we have lots of family activities. There's free crafts for the kids from 3 to 6. We're doing the tree lighting at 6 o'clock and photos with Santa at 6:30. There will be a Taylor Swift tribute band starting at 7 o'clock. And then we did this last year where we added on photos with Santa. So on Saturday, December 12th, and on the 19th from 5 to 8:30, you can do that over the Sporting Center. So another opportunity to see Santa. Thank you very much to the staff at American Legion Post 367. So we attended the Veterans Day celebration over at the Cultural Center. So thank you very much. We also all attended the Farm City Luncheon. So I just want to read this. As we approach Thanksgiving and celebrate Farm City Week, let's all pay homage to our neighboring Western communities who grow much of the bounty that we will find on our Thanksgiving tables. The Glades are the winter vegetable capital in the United States, the largest producer of sweet corn, the winter salad bowl east of the Mississippi, and a major rice producer generating $500 million annually, and the sugar industry creates 23,000 jobs and has a $3 billion economic impact. Farming is the second most important economic driver in the state, and we are fortunate it's in our backyard, and many of those who are involved in the business live in Royal Palm Beach, so thank a farmer for everything that they do. I'd like to thank Councilman Valentis for being a good sport, so I'll take this down for you now. But thanks. In addition to that, I did bring you a gift, so I have a University of Miami notepad for you. It is because everything from the U is priceless. You are going to have to fill out a gift receipt for that. And I would like to say, we talked about the last several years that we've moved our last meeting in December to the first Thursday of the month. We are unable to do that this year because we have a little overlap going on. So I'd like to say, Councilwoman Radusky, I think you're more than capable of representing the village for us at these events. But I'm sorry that we're unable to move our meeting for that. And with that, happy Thanksgiving. As we've had our moment of silence earlier today, please cherish those moments that you have with those you love. Thanks.
Rich.
Hi. This is orange, by the way, which has to be one of the worst colors I think ever. I love oranges, but I don't love the color. One of the things, I think everyone got an email forwarded from the village manager, and one thing I'd like to bring up was the sheriff's office, who does provide the police protection here for us in the village, was looking to, I think it was in January, either 11th or 12th. 11th. Looking to basically rent out Commons Park to do a swearing-in ceremony and a PBSO, at least the way I interpreted the email, basically an employee appreciation day as well. I do think that would be a good, and I don't know, Keith, do we need a consensus or directions? Because I did think that that was, or something, does it have to be put on the agenda, or how is the logistics of this?
I just need a consensus from the council to allow them to fill out a special event permit, because they plan on renting.
Co-sponsor it as well.
To use the stage, it has to be co-sponsored by the village, so.
Right. And they
do
will
plan.
be paying for.
They'll be paying for the 2 large pavilions they're going to be renting, and if they need exclusive use of the great lawn in front of the stage, they'll rent that too. But I don't think they're going to need that. But they'll fill out, what you're giving me is to allow them to submit a special event permit that will be reviewed by staff, and then it'll come to you for final approval.
So what is the sense of the council then on that?
I think it's a good idea. I'm for it.
I'm for it.
Quick question, it's an event that's open to the public, correct?
My understanding is it will be open to the public. We don't allow any events at Commons Park that are closed off to the public, so access would not be able to be denied, and we would review that as part of the special event permit.
Okay, and then they would have the same requirements that anybody else who wanted to rent the, I understand the stage is different, but with the pavilions and the
That is
great lawn,
correct.
it is the same that everyone's required to.
That is correct.
Thanks.
Are we okay then with that? Everybody agree?
As long as
Okay,
it's the
great,
same
there you
as
go.
Yep.
Fantastic, thank you. All right, very good.
Number 2, these have been strange times in the village recently. We have an election coming up, the mayor's seat, and I believe it's seat 3 are up for an election. We had one person for seat 1 that applied, and nobody else. So he will fill seat 1. And that begins, I believe, in March. To me, it makes a lot of sense. I'm a little uncomfortable up here sometimes because we have an even number. And, I would feel more comfortable having a number of 5, and seeing as how we already have someone who's going to be on the council in March anyway, my thought would be to appoint that person to the council to fill the spot between now and March, when his term will start for the position that he is qualified for. But that's just my preference, because to me that makes sense. I'd hate to have someone come before us and you put all this work and effort into it, something, and we're split 2 to 2 and nothing gets done. And
do we have, I know we've had this conversation before when we were left with 4 of us here, but do you foresee in the next 3 meetings that there is something that, or have you seen up to this point, the last 2 meetings, that we're...
You're asking me to predict the future.
I'm not, but as far as we've had this conversation, as far as what we have...
When the question came up before, I don't know of anything controversial between now and March, but there's no guarantee. And
it's actually only January and February, because the election would be prior to the March meeting.
It's December.
It would be December, January, and February. It'd be 3 meetings. I don't know of anything controversial out there. That doesn't mean that it won't happen, but I don't know of anything.
I think I understand what you're saying. I think the way I look at it, though, is then we have 3 other people who are running and waiting for this position also, and why would we do it with one when you have the same position with the others? And if there isn't an issue coming up that we find ourselves in that.
Well, we only have one open position, that's the thing.
We have the one seat where you could theoretically appoint somebody to that seat. My issue is, though, is if we have 3 residents that are running for another seat that's open, they're going through all of that, and it's, I don't think there's been anything that we say that we're going to be divided on, except maybe this topic right now.
Right, and that's
and at that point, it might be 3 to 1, so it doesn't matter.
It was just a couple meetings ago where we were deadlocked 2 to 2, and we didn't appoint a mayor. So, but that's just my point of view, and I get what you're saying too.
All right, Jan?
I actually talked to Mitty about this as well. Was there any legal thing preventing us from appointing someone, particularly the person who is qualified and was unopposed in the seat he ran in? Was there something that we legally prevented us from doing that.
The appointment process belongs to the council. There's nothing in either your code or your charter that dictates what that process is in any given circumstance. This is a unique circumstance for sure, because you have, it's my understanding, the one person that you're contemplating has qualified unopposed, will be sworn in to the seat for Group 1. The appointment that you're talking about is a vacancy for the seat in Group 3. So that appointment would run until the election, and it would end, and then he'd be sworn into the other seat, and then the others who are running for the election, one of them would win the election and take that seat. So there's a little bit of complication, but it's not impossible to accomplish if that's what the council wants to do.
Okay.
So I have a two-step suggestion. I'm okay appointing Mr. Miller into the seat today, but I also think we need a vice mayor, and I would like to appoint Selena in that spot since she is sitting in seat 1 right now. And that's the seat which in our normal rotation would be.
Well, wait a minute, though, and I appreciate that. However, technically, and Mr. Miller qualified for seat 1, correct?
That is correct.
I'm sitting in seat 1 right now. So I would then have to, are you suggesting then resign again to move to 3? Well,
No,
but
you're in
it's,
seat 1,
yeah,
and traditionally, seat 1 right now is what we had for vice mayor. So that's why I suggested appointing you until March, and then Adam will go in 1, and then the vice mayor will rotate to seat 2.
Well, the way I understand it is, and the way I'm understanding what you're saying, Jan, is Adam Miller would be appointed into the vacant seat 3 now. It's been, and I agree with the practice, what we've done for a while is we go 1, 2, 3, 4 for the vice mayor. Jeff was in seat 1. Fred passed away, so he became the mayor, and then Selena came over to seat 1. To me, the year's not out, and I would think the vice mayor should stay in seat 1. But I think those are two different things. One is the appointment of a vacant seat, and two, they're independent in my mind. Whether we appoint someone to the vacant seat or not is one thing, and the appointment of the vice mayor is a different thing. But I do agree with you, Jan, on both.
They are completely independent, separate, and distinct acts.
Absolutely.
Yes.
The only reason why I think of them as both is because when we talk about our council and being whole, I think about both of those things which contribute to that. That's the only reason why I think they both contribute to that.
Okay. So someone care to make a motion to move this discussion to a decision?
I don't think we're at that point, because I think it's very unclear that right now, seat 1 is occupied, and you want to appoint somebody to seat 3 to then have them move to seat 1 because you have 3 candidates to seat.
He's not moving. He's elected to seat. He's elected to that seat already. He's
elected
not moving anywhere.
He's elected to seat 1, correct?
Correct.
Seat 1 is occupied right now.
No, he'd be appointed to seat.
So
But he's getting appointed to seat 3,
Right.
and then in March, he will be in seat 1, and someone new will be in seat 3. To me, the bottom line is, we've got a guy who's going to be on the council. Do we want him to start in March, which is when his term will start, or do we want to, because we can, as Keith said, it's our discretion, whether filling a vacant seat, do we want to give him a couple months lead time before he starts his service for the seat he was elected for? Am I saying that right?
you really have 3 things going on that you're talking about.
Okay.
The first thing has already happened. It's Mr. Miller, is that correct? I don't want to.
Yes.
Mr. Miller has qualified to serve as a council member in the seat for Group 1. That will start in March after the reorganization. That is the first thing that happens and has happened. He's unopposed. He will take seat 1 starting in March. The second thing is right now, the council has a vacancy for the seat in Group 3. If you want to appoint someone into that seat it would only be until the March election. If you wanted to appoint Mr. Miller into that seat, he would serve in seat 3 until March.
Right.
He would then vacate. He wouldn't have to do anything, just that appointment lasts until March. He would be sworn in to seat 1 because that's what he qualified for. And then seat 3 will be filled by whoever wins the election for the 3 people who qualified for seat 3. That's the second thing that's in process. Third thing is if you want to appoint one of the 4 of you, well, one of the 4 of you other than the mayor to serve as vice mayor, that's the third thing that you may do. It's separate and distinct from, regardless of the vacancy, you can appoint one of you to be the vice mayor until the reorganization in March. So those are the 3 things that are happening. They're all independent, they're all related, but they're all separate and distinct things that are happening right now.
All right. So, any further discussion? Somebody care to make a motion on any one or both? I think there were 2, right?
I'll start, which should be the easiest one, is I move to appoint Selena Samios as vice mayor.
Second.
Okay.
Resolution, and normally that's not done by resolution, but normally it's done at the reorganization meeting. This is not the reorganization meeting. The document would memorialize council's action, but we have that prepared in anticipation of this possibility happening tonight. So.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay, so.
It's not that I oppose. I think it's very, I feel like we're at the boardwalk and we're playing the game with the cups and the ball underneath it, and we're moving everybody around.
Are you either opposed or?
I will accept the position as vice mayor. Thank you very much.
Okay. So that takes care of one.
Right.
Again, a motion on the issue of appointing Dr. Miller to the vacant seat, which is seat 3.
I will make a motion to approve.
I assume Mr. Miller is present tonight, and I don't know if you want to make sure he's in favor of this and would accept that. Normally, you only do that to people when they're not in attendance at the meeting.
Does it matter that we have some more candidates from
Okay.
Does it matter that we have candidates for seat 3 that are in the room, is the question. Again, I would answer that by saying that the process belongs to the council. What's being proposed is putting somebody in the seat who is guaranteed to be serving as a council member. So there's, I have listened to all the comments that have come from the dais over the last several months about not wanting to give an unfair advantage to someone, and this, in my opinion, would not do that because the person that's being considered for the appointment has qualified and will be sworn in as a council member. So it doesn't do anything to any of the candidates who are running for seat 3, which if you alternatively were to select one of your candidates who are running for that seat, clearly that would implicate the issues that you've been concerned about all along. In my opinion, this does not do that, which is why this is somewhat of a unique situation in terms of doing this appointment the way you're doing it, as opposed to putting it out, quote unquote, on the street and seeing who's interested. So that is my opinion on that, and that's why I feel like you can proceed in the way that Mr. Valentes has suggested.
We have a motion.
Mr. Mayor, if I may just add one comment for Keith's consideration. I heard Mr. Miller agree to the potential appointment, but his potential appointment would be contingent on him resigning from Planning and Zoning. He currently sits on your Planning and Zoning Commission, so he would need to resign, so he is not holding 2 seats.
May I ask?
Want to bring him up?
If you can confirm that would be ideal, yeah.
I thought you had to resign from a board position before you could run for office.
He would need to resign Well, he's not running for office. No, two different boards, not the same board. So P and Z, he could stay on, two separate boards.
So the others, so our education and our rec advisory board, you have to resign before you can run? Before you qualify?
Didn't have to resign. We did address that. He and I addressed that.
Okay.
He did not have to resign from P and Z prior to qualifying for council seat.
Okay.
But he does need to resign if
Before.
the council is to appoint him to the council, he needs to resign from P and Z.
And is the reason for that, Mitty, the same as like the resign to run law? If you're running for a different spot?
It's dual office holding prohibition, right?
Okay.
He can't sit on both boards. He can't sit on your planning and zoning commission and also sit on council.
Right.
And if you appoint him tonight, he's still currently sitting on P and Z as we sit here tonight.
So does he need to resign now, or
If there is desire for council
we need
to,
him to come up and,
he could approach the podium if the council would.
He's not running. You guys are appointing him. He's not qualifying.
please introduce yourself if you would?
Good evening, Adam Miller.
Oh, you're talking about for seat one.
And just so you're clear, you and I spoke earlier, just for the council's understanding, but is it your intent if the council does appoint you, you're in agreement to resign your position from the Planning and
I
Zoning
am.
Commission?
I am.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to appoint Mr. Miller to vacant seat number 3, correct? He's running for 1, and then the vacant one is 3.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Welcome.
Welcome to the early start, sir.
Yes, indeed.
Serving without salary on an appointed
Need to
board.
do a swearing in?
Does he have to publicly resign?
He just did before your motion.
So,
That may not have been correct.
Sorry. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
The statute does not apply to people serving without salary on an appointed board.
I think, just for clarification then, because we've had people who have had to resign from our boards in order to qualify to run for office. So if that's not an issue, or if that's not what needs to be done, I think our boards need to know that.
And I'll follow up with you. There's an exception in the law that if it's an unpaid position, which is the Planning and Zoning Commission, he did not have to resign.
All of ours are unpaid. Sorry, go ahead.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Adam Miller,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support,
that I will support,
protect, and defend
protect, and defend
the Constitution
the Constitution
and government
and government
of the United States
of the United States
and the state of Florida,
and the state of Florida,
that I am duly
that I am duly
qualified to hold
office
office under
under
the Constitution of the state, and that I will well and faithfully
perform the duties of
Councilman Group 3
Councilman Group 3
for the Village of Royal Palm Beach,
for the Village of Royal Palm Beach,
of which I am now
about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, and if you'll sign.
Thank you.
Come on. Oh, thank you.
congratulations. Thank you. Welcome aboard.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, thank you.
Okay, that was one heck of a report.
Sorry,
No, that
I-
was good.
I don't have any more.
Okay, thank you again for the report. Jan?
Okay, good evening, everyone. I want to update you on a couple of things. So the Florida League Committee Report on Utilities, Natural Resources, and Public Works met in November. And as I mentioned at the last meeting, we talked about 3 possible priorities: utility enterprise fund transfers, state parks, and comprehensive waste and recycling. The committee, when we met, 2 more issues were added. So one is One Water Initiative, And then the second one was tree protection. After lots of discussion, the vote in the end, the committee members picked utility enterprise fund transfers, so that will be the policy statement. And then the second one was One Water Initiative. So the One Water Initiative supports holistic water management and policies that seek to enhance integration between different water systems while maintaining local flexibility. So in the December meeting, we will go through wordsmithing those policy statements for the legislative session next year. And then last week, I attended the National League of Cities 100th celebration in Tampa. 4,000 plus participants, 49 states were represented, topics on economic opportunity and financial empowerment, education and workforce success, economic development, housing and community development, infrastructure, community safety, AI in cities, sustainability. The league, similar to our state league, has several policy committees in place, and they work similarly the way the state does. I made a copy of the annual business meeting, which has a list of all the policies that got approved. If you want to take one and pass them down. And then, but here was the most valuable thing about going to the National League of Cities. The technical assistance offered by the organization, as well as all the connections from every other municipality across the country, and having organizations and municipalities and cities and towns go through some of the same things we do. And when we talk about preemptions and fighting home rule with our own state, the National League actually gives us cover and some support in trying to fight some of those home rule issues and some of those preemptions. So I thought it was very good opportunity for us to really connect and not only do the good work that we're doing here locally, but have cover and other similar representation on issues that we're fighting here at home from other municipalities across the country. So,
Great. Thank you.
thank you.
Along with Jan, I attended the National League of Cities convention, which turns out to be the 100th anniversary of National League of Cities. And one of the benefits, as Jan mentioned, is being able to talk to council members from throughout the country, cities of all sizes. And in fact, what was surprising was that the membership of the National League of Cities is made up mostly by small cities, cities of 50,000 or less, and of course that's us. And so I think when we first talked about joining the National League of Cities, the concern was it's mostly oriented on the larger cities. That's not the case. There were a lot of sessions. In fact, most of the sessions had something in it for the smaller cities. So 80% of the membership is actually the smaller cities, so it fits well with us. And as you might expect, there's a lot of commonality. One of the issues that came up again and again was traffic congestion. And so that's a problem throughout the country, as is affordable housing, as affordable child care. And so some of these things, of course, are amazingly common if you think about the differences one city to another. And so there are some unique solutions that are available. And that's one of the benefits of actually spending time with fellow council members throughout the country. One of the things that was very impressive was a presentation that was actually done by Mayor Chelsea Reed from Palm Beach Gardens. She was a panel member, and she presented a discussion of their transit-oriented development that they have going on in Palm Beach Gardens. And what that really drove home was the idea that transportation and land use are not separate. They're interrelated, interdependent, and that kind of thing. Listen to the questions and listen to the answers that were posed to her. And I will tell you that there's a lot of value in that. And I think a lot of the other council members throughout the country actually saw that value. It was a really good session. Some of the general sessions were interesting. I didn't even know what a futurist was, but we got a presentation by a futurist. Her name is Crystal Washington. And she said a couple of things that are a little bit stunning. One of them was, and I think we all experienced that the rate of change that we're experiencing is increasing day after day after day. And the really challenging part is so is the stress that goes along with it throughout the country. Another thing she said is things are changing so fast, we'll never be caught up again. Now, I don't know whether that's inspiring or depressing, but it is kind of a measure of reality. One of the other things that she did mention and encouraged is when we make decisions, make sure that they are data-driven decisions. I know our school board uses a lot of data to drive most of the decisions that they make and most of the results that they get. So she was encouraging all of us to do that, and she said, you know, don't create bad policy from erroneous perceptions. And there was the strawberry Pop-Tarts thing, which if you want to hear about it later, Jan can tell you or I can tell you about it. It's a great story. It's an expectation that's surprising, and when you get to the facts, you find out what you thought was the case was not at all the case. So data-driven decisions was a message that she gave. It's a really good session. There were a lot of contractors that offered some very interesting things, from playscapes to high-end technology for traffic management and that type of thing. It was a well worthwhile couple of days. And so I wanted to report on one more thing, and we'll move on, and that is the Education Advisory Board meeting in November actually focused on Crestwood Middle School. Principal Nance discussed some of the things that are characteristic of the school and some of the work that they're doing. Crestwood has maintained a B rating since 2022, but is actively working on trying to obtain an A rating. The school has 100 faculty and staff and 752 students, and so their student population has grown in the last couple of years. They've got a number of programs, one of which is called Student Voice, and we had some of the representatives coming who came in and demonstrated the student voice in action. So the school has a lot of good things going on, and they have a number of events. They had a Veterans Day event, and they are going to have a career day. So for any who are available to attend, it's on December the 12th. So that completes my report, and it now takes us, I think, to, let's see, where are we? Any petitions to be presented to the Village Council this evening? Yes. Come on up to the microphone. Even though we know who you are, please identify yourself.
Hello, Danielle Pinto. I would like to petition the council to assist the village in reviving the classroom.
Can you get a little closer to the mic?
I'm sorry.
having difficulty hearing you. Thank you.
Okay. I would like to petition the council, Mayor, to revive the Veterans Park classroom area. It's like the small amphitheater on the corner of Royal Palm Beach Boulevard and Sparrow.
Okay.
I don't know there's anything wrong with it.
Well, thank you for that. We'll take that under advisement, and I'm going to be sure I know where you're talking about, so maybe we can talk afterwards.
Lovely.
Okay.
Thank
All right.
you.
Thank you. Are there any other petitions to come before the council? All right. If not, then the floor is now open for public comment on non-agenda items and consent agenda items. Diane, are there any comment cards for consent
Mayor.
or non-consent? Ray, any hands raised?
No, Mayor.
Okay. Is there anyone else who would care to make a public comment on any consent agenda item or non-agenda item at this time? All right. Not seeing any, then I will close the floor to public comment, and then we will now move on to the consent agenda. And since Diane is a little unable to speak because she had some dental work done, standing in for Diane, stunt double.
Double, that's right,
Stunt
Mr. Mayor.
double.
Yes, sir. I'll try to read them as quickly as I can because she left me with quite the list here. But number one is approval of the minutes of the council regular meeting of October 17, 2024. Two, approval and authorization for the village manager to enter into an agreement with Brightview Landscape Services, Inc. as the lowest responsible bidder for park maintenance services commencing December 1st, 2024 and ending November 30th, 2025. Three, authorization to reject all bids received and open at 3 p.m. on Tuesday, October 15th, 2024 for PR 2201. The RPB Recreation Center renovations and expansion design build project. 4, approval of a special event permit for the Village of Royal Palm Beach to hold a winter festival at Royal Palm Beach Commons Park on Saturday, December 7, 2024 from 2 p.m. to 9 p.m. 5, approval of a special event permit for Our Lady, Queen of the Apostles Catholic Church to hold a Christmas Village and Festival at 100 Crestwood Boulevard on December 6, 7, 13, and 14, 2024 from 4 p.m. until 11 p.m. and December 8th and 15th, 2024 from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. 6, approval of a special event permit for H.L. Johnson Elementary RPB Village School SDPBC to hold a winter concert at BRPB Commons Park Amphitheater Stage at 11600 Point Siena Boulevard on December 10, 2024 from 5 p.m. until 8 p.m. and December 12, 2024 from 5 p.m. until 8 p.m. 7, approval of a special event permit for Amber's Animal Outreach to hold a Christmas fundraiser at the Community Animal Hospital of Royal Palm Beach on Saturday, December 15, 2024, from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. 8, adoption of Resolution 24-31, a resolution of the Village Council of the Village of Royal Palm Beach, Florida, approving and authorizing in accordance with established policy the making of a budget amendment for Fund 001 and Fund 408 in the fiscal year 2023/2024 budget. Said amendment represents the year-end budget adjustment and appropriates $267,420 from restricted fund balance for police education, Fund 304 undesignated fund balance, and interest earnings revenue to increase amounts budgeted in the police, legal, and transfers. 9, adoption of Resolution 24-30, resolution of the Village Council of the Village of Royal Palm Beach, Florida, approving and authorizing in accordance with established policy to make a budget amendment for Fund 408 in the fiscal year 2023/2024 budget. Said amendment to transfer a total of $4,143,097 from Fund 105, 302, and 304 to Fund 408 for the following projects: storm drain outfall replacement, PW 23 SD, Canal Bank stabilization, PW 1806, La Mancha subdivision, PW 2204, and WTP site modification, PW 1902. 10, adoption of Resolution 24-32, a resolution of the Village Council of the Village of Royal Palm Beach, Florida, to declare certain personal property owned by the village to be either surplus to its needs and sold at a publicly noticed sale, or determined to be obsolete, non-serviceable, or beyond economic repair, pursuant to and in accordance with the provisions and requirements of Section 2-3 of the Village Code, and authorizing the village to remove such surplus property when sold or disposed of from the fixed assets of the village. 11, adoption of Resolution 24-33, a resolution of the Village Council of the Village of Royal Palm Beach, Florida, approving and authorizing in accordance with established policy to make a budget amendment for Fund 408 in the fiscal year 2024-2025. Said amendment to transfer a total of $1,800,000 from Fund 304 undesignated fund balance to La Mancha Underdrain Project, PW 2204. And 12, approval of bid award and authorization for the village manager to enter into a contract with R&D Paving LLC, the lowest responsive responsible bidder, in the amount of $5,069,848.45 for CIP PW 2204. La Mancha subdivision underdrain funding for the capital project is through ARPA funds and funds budgeted from Fund 408 3800-538.65-99.
Great, thank you very much. We really appreciate you standing in like that. You did very well. You did very well. Would anyone care to pull any of the consent agenda items?
I'd like to pull consent agenda item number 12, please.
Number 4?
12.
12, I'm sorry. Okay. Anyone else? Any other items? All right, I'd like to pull agenda item number 6. We can begin with 12. That's fine.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda items number 1 through 5 and 7 through 11.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. So, Selena, if you want to address 12?
Well, you want to pull 6, because that's first?
That's fine. Go ahead.
We'll jump to number 12. I just wanted an explanation real quick. I know we had a couple movement things with our regular agenda items prior to this one, or consent agenda items prior, but just an explanation with the La Mancha subdivision under drain. So just for clarification, that is the issue that we have with the runoff of the water from west to east over La Mancha into the reserve area.
It is that, and it is also intercepting the groundwater before and lowering it so it doesn't come out of the sidewalks the way it does, and it doesn't kind of go up through the road and damage the road. So what we will be doing is we'll be digging a 2-foot wide trench right on the edge of each side of the road, digging down about 3 feet, putting some sand in, a perforated pipe, and and then backfilling that and paving back on top of it. And what that will do is it will, at that location and kind of in effect of about 12 to 15 feet away from there, it'll pull that water down so it doesn't come out of the ground the way it does during the wet season.
Okay, so because and we're talking primarily on the northern part of La Mancha where the
That is
bend is
correct.
just before you turn, okay.
Well, that whole northern part.
That whole northern part,
Right.
okay. And then that will alleviate the flooding that the residents have on that side. It'll alleviate the flooding that's on the sidewalk on the village property that is below the FPL power lines as well.
Surface drainage, it will not deal with the surface drainage as much. That we'll control through another way. It's to get the groundwater. It's to lower the groundwater. So, because during the rainy season, that groundwater is coming out of that water is coming out of the ground and saturating that area 24/7, and it'll alleviate that problem.
And then with the approval tonight, do you anticipate 8 to 12 months before the project's completed, or just so residents know?
The project, I don't know the exact number of days on the contract, but we will be done with the project before the end of next year.
Okay, would you like to make a motion?
If there's anybody else? Do you have,
No
okay.
questions.
I make a motion to approve consent agenda item number 12.
Aye.
Unanimously. For consent agenda item number 6, we have some Jaguars in the audience who've been sitting patiently through the entire evening. I thought it would be good to give Principal Kucharski a chance to come and say something about that particular item.
Excellent. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having us. We're all here really ultimately to say thank you for last year and allowing us the opportunity to perform and be a part of Commons Park. And it was a huge success and very helpful for us at H.L. Johnson Elementary and the surrounding communities due to the traffic and that we have in our area in such a small area to park and really have our parents and families enjoy. So first and foremost, thank you so much for last year. And then this year, we are hoping to be granted the same opportunity, and it was truly enjoyable for our families to be out under the stars at Commons Park, which I grew up here in Royal Palm, so an amazing park that we now have and can go with our families that you guys provide all the time for us to share in free events, from rides to slides to concerts, and just thank you for the opportunity, and we hope to have it again, and I'm here if you have any questions involving that.
Great. Well, thank you very much. We look forward to another great performance again. I think we've kind of initiated something that's going to be really beneficial as a partnership with our schools, so thank you all very much for coming. Thank you. So I will make a motion then to approve agenda item.
Mayor.
I'm sorry, I can't.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Ask for a motion, and then you can
you give me a
second it
Make
if
a
you want.
motion to approve consent agenda item 6.
And I will second that motion because I can do that. All right, there we go. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Very much, and just
Thank you, Principal.
formal invitations are coming, but December 10th and December 12th, we would love to have you and represent, all the hard work that you put in for Royal Palm Beach, so thank you very much.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the regular agenda item now. Some of these items are quasi-judicial hearings, and we'll take them in order. The first regular agenda item is a public hearing to consider landscape waiver, application number 24-037LW, and approval of order LW-24-02, an application by Solid State Design Consultants on behalf of Kennett of Palm Beach, Inc., for consideration of a landscape waiver from Section 15-133B1 to allow for a 4-foot wide perpendicular divider strip where our village code requires a 5-foot for a property located on 11328 Okeechobee Boulevard. Village Attorney, wish to swear in and handle
Yes.
the ex parte?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is the applicant present? Can you come to the podium here, sir, for me? Can you state your name for the record, please?
Jacob Pearson.
Thank you. This is a quasi-judicial matter, so I will swear you in. I'll swear in staff as well. Could you raise your right hand for me? Do you both swear firm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you, and I'll turn back to the council for any ex parte disclosures on this item.
Staff. Okay, so, Brett,
Mr. Mayor, if
yes.
would I be able to ask a question of the village attorney?
Absolutely.
Just occurred to me, I think some of the agendas we have, or some of the items on the agenda we have tonight would have gone through planning and zoning.
They all did, yes.
Okay,
That's correct.
and Mr. Miller was on planning and zoning when those things were recommended, so is there any problem with him sitting on decisions that he participated in on planning and zoning? Okay,
Thank you.
Okay.
sorry, stuff just pops up in my brain like that.
That was understandable question. Good one. I hadn't thought of it. Okay, so we've completed that. Now we turn to Bradford.
Great.
I think you were
Thank you,
presenting.
Mayor. The applicant is requesting a landscape waiver to allow for a 4-foot wide perpendicular divider strip where village code requires 5 feet in width when 2 rows of parking stalls face each other. The reduction in the width of the perpendicular divider strip is to accommodate a 5-foot wide sidewalk, which provides an access way from the handicap parking stalls to the crosswalk. And the property is located at 11328 Okeechobee Boulevard. The applicant contends the sidewalk path allows for a 2-foot overhang from ADA parking space, installation of a 4-foot wide sidewalk and 6-foot-inch curb leaves 6 feet on the west side of a new path of travel for a 4-foot island, green space, and 2-foot overhang per code requirements. This modification necessitates a corresponding landscape waiver. Generally, staff agrees with the applicant's assessment. Staff believes that this is the minimum waiver necessary to allow reasonable use of the provided ADA parking. And you can see on this slide, that area is highlighted here in red. It does not traverse the entire length of that perpendicular landscape island, just those areas which are adjacent to the handicap parking spaces. The Planning and Zoning Commission considered this application on October 22nd, 2024, and recommended approval of a vote of 5-0, and staff is recommending approval. I'll turn the floor back over to you, Mayor. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Bradford. Does the applicant wish to add anything?
No, sir, he did it better than I could ever do it.
Oh, okay. All right. Are there any questions or discussion items from the council? Okay. The floor is now open for public comment on this agenda item. Diane, are there any comment cards?
No, Mayor.
Any hands raised? Ray?
No, Mayor.
Is there anyone else who wishes to comment on, make a public comment on this agenda item? All right, not seeing any. Once again, I go to the council. Any final comments or questions? If not, I will look for a motion in a second.
I'll make a motion to approve regular agenda item number 1.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed. It passes unanimously. Congratulations. All right, thank you.
For your time. Congratulations.
The second regular agenda item is a public hearing to consider landscape waiver application number 24-078LW and approval of order LW-24-03, an application by Insight Studio on behalf of AI Florida Division, DC LLC, is requesting a landscape waiver from section 15-133B to eliminate the required 5-foot wide perpendicular divider strip for a property located at 1171 North State Road 7. Once again, swearing in and...
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is the applicant present? Can you come to the podium for me and give the council your name?
Good evening, Brian Terry, Insight Studio.
Thank you. As the mayor said, this is also a quasi-judicial item. Could you raise your right hand for me and I'll swear you in? Do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, and I'll turn back to council for ex parte disclosures on this item.
Staff.
Okay, thank you. Bradford.
Great. Thank you. The applicant, Insight Studio, on behalf of AI Florida Division, is requesting landscape waiver to section 15133B to eliminate the required 5-foot perpendicular divider strips. You may know this is the Aldi Distribution Center. This slide illustrates the overall site plan, and in the southwest corner, you'll see the proposed parking areas highlighted here in blue. The slide illustrates the area that is the subject of this waiver request to eliminate the required perpendicular landscape islands. This area highlighted in red is where the perpendicular divider strips are required by village code. This area contains these, when I say this area, I'm talking about the parking area. This area contains a total of 182 parking spaces, bringing the total parking spaces on the site to 383 parking spaces, of which 213 parking spaces are required by village code for this facility, resulting in a surplus of parking of 170 parking spaces. The applicant contends that, quote, the request for this waiver is substantiated by the site constraints, the burden of additional pavement causing smaller retention area, and the project viability and public benefit. Compliance with the perpendicular divider strip requirement would necessitate the expansion of the paved parking areas, which would significantly reduce the space available for the site's designated stormwater retention area. Staff contends denial, or is recommending denial of this requested landscape waiver, and it does not concur with the applicant's justification. In staff's opinion, the waiver exceeds what is necessary to allow reasonable use of the property. Furthermore, the applicant claims that incorporating the perpendicular divider strips would significantly reduce the space available, the designated storm retention area. However, the applicant has not provided sufficient evidence to demonstrate that. The site would be unable to meet the stormwater management requirements by expanding existing dry detention areas or through exfiltration. This slide here, again, this is a dry detention area, and staff, now these, as I had stated before, 170 of these parking spaces are above and beyond what village code requires. So if you were to make the waiver request, or if you were able to eliminate these parking spaces, you would be able to increase this dry detention area here on the slide, which then you could then shift things south and provide those perpendicular divider strips in those remaining parking rows. The Planning and Zoning Commission considered the application October 22nd, 2024, and recommended approval with the condition that the applicant add the required landscaping from the eliminated perpendicular divider strips to other locations on the site by a vote of 5-0. And I think the applicant was going to provide those additional landscaping materials along the west buffer and along the south buffer. With that being said, Mayor, I'll turn the floor back over to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bradford. Would the applicant wish to add anything to that?
Good evening. Again, Brian Terry for the record. I'm happy to run through a brief presentation. I think I can run it from here, right?
Yes.
I guess I should. We have obviously the next agenda item as well that is related to the site plan and the AAR. Would it be okay to run through everything at one time, just so you have the broader perspective of what the entire application is about, or do you want me to just focus strictly on the landscape waiver?
I don't.
You can go through them at this. I'm sorry, you can go through them at the same time,
Right.
but just council understand that the first item is the landscape waiver, so that'll be the
And I'll touch on, I'll give you the broader picture, and then I'll focus on the landscape waiver right at the end, so that
That'll probably help to put it in context. So.
Right. Again, as you are aware, we have these separate applications, the site plan, the AAR, and then obviously the landscape waiver. Again, just for perspective, I think everybody's very familiar with the Aldi Distribution Center and warehouse component that's within the Aldi Park PID. This is parcel 1. This is the main warehouse. that we're speaking to. Existing land use and zoning, again, no modifications to any of that. We're talking about a site plan, a modification, and then the components to that. So this is the approved plan from 2012, and obviously was constructed, except for what was the future expansion area. That future expansion area was in this location where we're going to be speaking about tonight. It was a little over 150,000 square feet was the future expansion. And as you can see, it was the entirety of that rectangular space, right? There was no additional parking being identified or provided with that expansion. So what we're here talking about this evening is a reduction in that expansion. Aldi wants to move forward. This is dry warehousing that's going to be provided. It's approximately a 55% reduction of the overall square footage that was originally intended to be as this future expansion, but a demand that's also necessary for the operational side of the facility is the parking. Having additional parking for the staff and the folks who are working there. Again, there's some fairly quick turnaround, and some overlap, so it necessitates a parking demand that's going to exceed the village's code criteria. So again, this is an operational component. Keep in mind, right, this parking lot is behind gates. It's all the way in the back of the facility. It's only for employees. Public do not access this location. And so, again, it's purely for the function and operations of the facility. So it's 182 spaces that's being proposed in addition to the building square footage of 347. And as was mentioned, new retention areas that's being provided to accommodate for the additional paved area. Just quickly, obviously there's land development criteria that we have to meet, setbacks, open space. Those have all been met with this expanded, with this building expansion. You can see this is kind of 3D. It's in your backup, the architectural plans that were submitted. This kind of gives you the context of where it is and what it is in scale to the rest of the building. So it's again on the southwest corner of the existing building. And this will be the view from the west. So if you were looking towards the back, again, architecturally, it's consistent with the other primary warehousing component to the building itself, and it's what's outlined in red. I'll just touch on it now. One of the components to the site plan is related to identifying a location for public art. This is approximately a $7 million renovation and architectural, and the vertical component is about approximately $7 million. Art and public places kicks in on this, and so this would be the location. And that artwork is currently, they're contracting with the artist to move through the process and identify what is most appropriate for this location. That is in the gated entrance point. So again, the most public, I guess, facing spot on the property. We also, through the site plan, are including locating EV spaces, again, kind of on that public main entrance point, access to the building itself where the office element is. So there'll be new EV spaces that will be provided within that parking area. Site plan, again, we have certain criteria. I think that staff's recommended approval with this, obviously contingent upon the landscape waiver. And same thing, planning and zoning recommended approval as well. So touching on, let's move to the landscape waiver. I mean, Bradford, spoke to it very clearly. We have these 3 rows of parking spaces that we're requesting the removal of those landscape islands. Again, this is this is for staff only in that location of the facility. We do have the retention area to the south. As was mentioned, we would have to eliminate parking spaces to accommodate for essentially that additional 15 feet of space that would be required to do it, modification of the retention design. At the planning and zoning meeting, the suggestion was made, I think it was a very good one. Look, we have a nice site, right? There's a property here that we can take those trees, let's put in a landscape and put them elsewhere on the property. Again, through the code, we would be required, I believe it's 38 trees as well as 285 or so shrubs. So we're going to accommodate that within the landscape plan. There was also a resident or a neighbor that was at the planning and zoning to our west and indicated some concern with potential visibility to the expansion area. So what we'd like to do is we want to take those trees, we want to provide for some on the south side near the new, kind of that southern buffer and along the retention area, but we also are proposing to take 12 of those trees and then provide them within the existing buffer. We want to field locate those in locations where we know where there might be gaps in the existing tree canopy, and just to fill in and try to appease anybody's concern to the west. And again, so we're providing all the landscape material, we're just asking to put it in a different location. And with that, and I apologize, Bradford, there was a comment in here that staff was recommending approval. I understand that you're not related to the landscape waiver, but we certainly would appreciate your support. Here to answer any questions, as well as the representation, or Dana is here with, as our civil engineer, as well as representatives from Aldi.
Well, thank you. Does the council have any comments or questions for the applicant or for Bradford on this issue?
I do. I don't, Bradford, if you can go back to the outline that you had, please, the site plan, and you can choose which one that you want to use. Let's use that one, okay.
Yeah, this is probably the best one here.
Thank you. All right, so they're asking to remove the red areas, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and how many more parking spaces will they have if they do remove those?
So so if you were to reconfigure this, and I'm just penciling reconfiguring this, so he needs more retention, right? So what he's saying is that he can't provide these perpendicular divider strips because if he added that area, then this parking area would be enlarged, and then that would then eliminate maybe this dry detention area here. So what my suggestion is that we reconfigure this to remove these parking spaces here. Then you can shift these down, widen these 5 feet. Then this dry retention area can also be enlarged in order to accommodate the stormwater retention that the applicant is concerned about.
So, Mr. Terry, how many, I know this is a main distribution site, how many employees do you have that will be in that back area?
I'm not sure that I can specifically answer that question. Yeah.
If you can give me a ballpark within 30 feet, 30 people? I'm sorry? If you can just give me a ballpark, like how many?
The issue is shift change, right?
Come over to the
Yeah,
microphone.
sorry,
I
yeah.
could, Mr. Mayor, too. State your name, sir, and I'll swear you in. Thank you. Raise your right hand for me. Do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
So the problem is we're going to go to 3 shifts.
Yep.
So when you have the front parking lots full, and that's the only ones we have right now, the next shift can't come in because there's an overlap in shifts. So we need to have almost double the parking of what is required so we can bring in a second shift while first shift is still there. They move out, then we can flip-flop the parking lots. That's the main issue. That's why we need so many. I understand what the code is, what we are required to provide, but we need more because of shift change.
Okay.
And this is where all your employees then from the front, it's just the warehouse employees. It's not it's the distribution site. It's not the store itself.
No, it has nothing to do with the store. It's just the distribution site. We have a parking lot that's in the front where all of the employees come in now. This would be around to the back, so the second shift could come in the back. So we would have 2 parking lots.
So you have 2 shifts right now and you want to go to 3?
We're going to go to the third, yeah, right.
Okay, and then how many employees roughly do you have each shift? Pick a shift and just give me a number.
We're at, I'm going to put us at, I'm going to guess, and this is a guess because I don't run the warehouse, I do national real estate, but I'm going to say we're at the 300 range, and we're probably going to be at 400 by the time we're done and running 3 shifts.
Per shift, though, you have?
Shift probably, 260.
You have 260 per shift?
I would say.
Okay, and then you're going to double that then, or triple that then, so it would be?
Probably won't triple, because we'll probably separate some to a different shift, right? We won't be hiring a full another shift of people, but we will be having that change.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. I heard 300 to 400 total.
Right.
And I heard 3 shifts. So it could be 100, 125.
My math's off. So we should be at. Sounds like 125 max. So we should be at 520 now, so we're at like 260 a shift, right? So we're at 520 total now. Does that make sense? Yeah, 520. So we're at 520 now, 260 per shift, and we're running 2 shifts.
Oh, with the 2 shifts, you're at 520.
Yeah.
520 with 2 shifts.
Yep.
So then you're going to add on another 250 employees?
We won't add on that many. We'll take some of those from the first and second shift and move them to the third shift and may bring on a couple extra.
Okay, so then they don't need, they're in that parking spot then that whole time?
Right.
They're not shifting? Okay.
All the spaces will not be full all of the time. It's mostly
Right,
just
the
for the
overlap.
change in the shift.
Right.
Answer.
Yes.
So your very first question was, if you were to put these in and you shifted the parking, how much would you lose? That bottom line of parking was 20 feet deep. These are 3 rows of 5 foot each. That's 15 feet. So if you lost that bottom row, you would lose 13 parking places.
Is that, Bradford, that's on your?
Okay, so let's, I'm having trouble with this.
The south row.
Right,
I counted 13.
It's roughly 40 spaces.
It's that south row, but if you were to get into this row here, this is 9 parking spaces. This is 10 parking spaces too. So if you're going to push up a little bit more.
You wouldn't lose any of them. You would just, if you put the 5 feet into each one of them, you would lose that 20 feet on the south end. You would have to add the retention for that. And that's 20 feet. You lose 15 feet you add 15 feet of landscaping, and you can fit the drainage and lose those 13 spots at the south end.
And that 13 spots, Ray?
So it's 13 on the south end, and then the 3 on the west end? I think, did you say Bradford, or just those 13?
You're going to lose the whole double spot. So you're going to lose the island in the middle and a parking spot on both sides of that
And then those
island.
19.
So it's about approximately 40 spots, if you count, right? 2, 4, 6, 8.
It was 19 in that last row.
So you're at 38,
Right.
so almost 40 spots.
That you'd lose. Right.
And then it's also increasing the retention pond.
Actually,
It would be
it's 15 feet wide because there's 3 islands.
There's 3 5-foot wide, that's 15 feet. There's 13 parking places, or 20 feet long. So you lose those 13, everything shifts down 5, 10, 15, everything fits, and you get more grass drainage.
And you would have 370 parking spaces.
Instead of the 383.
Correct.
Okay. Other questions, comments? So with regard to what the village manager just mentioned, that you don't find acceptable? It won't meet your requirements?
We put in the maximum we have for growth. We're trying to not have to come back again. We offered to planning and zoning about moving the trees elsewhere. It's a private parking lot. This is what we came up with, but it's not ideal, no.
And I guess, I think that's the point. I think that, again, the comment was made at the P&Z, and I think it was a very good one, that those trees can be better served in that landscape area and could be probably better served if placed in a different location. This gives us the ability to really do that. Take those trees, put them in a place that potentially could, again, mitigate any concern from the adjacent neighbors. We put them in the tree, or we put them in the parking lot. Again, I understand the intention and why they're supposed to be in parking lots, and we have trees in the end islands. In my opinion, I think they'd be better off in a different location.
But I thought the residents in the Willows had the issue in the very beginning with that site being developed because it does butt up against the residential. So I thought that there was the hedges that were going to go, that were going to grow, so that to give that buffer.
The buffer itself is obviously is significant when this was designed in 2012, right? That buffer is, and again, look, the opportunity is here. We have, potentially close to 40 trees that would be required in a parking lot where we can take those and start to sprinkle them in other locations that could be, again, more helpful.
Right, and no doubt about it. I mean, that was a discussion item. I remember us talking at length about adding more buffer material.
There's a lot.
And more is clearly better. In fact, there were Australian pines or some version of trees that actually had to be removed, which provided a nice buffer, but they needed to be removed because.
Right. Yes, there was
right.
along that entire edge.
And so adding some kind of buffer material, of course, is appealing. There's no doubt about it. But again, the proposal or the alternative configuration that was offered is not.
I mean, it's not ideal. Again, we are going to be losing parking spaces. Part of, again, this is, as was mentioned, I mean, we're looking to try to do an expansion that's going to increase their capacity, increase the demand of employees that they need to have on the site, and create some flexibility that they certainly don't have today. I understand it's above and beyond code criteria. I mean, we would certainly prefer not to see that have to remove spaces to provide for those landscape islands.
Okay.
I guess maybe I'm not understanding. I thought the removal of the 13 spaces was because of the drainage issues, not the islands. Because my thought was, why couldn't we relocate the trees from the islands along the sides, as you said, but also provide for the extra drainage? I thought that was the issue for the further down ones. Is that? I guess I'm not understanding. Does that make any sense, Ray?
Taking out the 13 gave more area for drainage, and provided the 15-foot that you were losing to put the 3 5-foot landscape buffers in there. But the actual numbers, I don't know. But it appears to me that if you lost those 13 and put the 15 feet wide or 5 foot each of those strips, you would have more drainage area, and the strips would fit. And the strips do get trees too. I mean, so this area will be heavily landscaped with trees in the end islands and in the perpendicular landscape area. So it'll be, that portion of the building adjacent to this parking lot will be well buffered, and it will memorialize it as a car parking area, which was what we promised all those residents, that we would not have trucks back there, and it would make it more difficult for trucks back there. They never said that trucks were going back there. I'm just throwing that out there, that it would assist us in that assurance to the residents that trucks would not be back there.
Well, because what my thoughts were to take the trees out of the strips and then put them along the sides, but still, as Selena said, provide for more. I mean, lose just those 13 bottom ones to help the drainage situation. Would that be something that's acceptable, or does that even make sense? Or am I?
The intention of the strip is to be able to plant in it, right? So, is to put the trees, to provide space for trees to be planted and give them adequate root space for the roots to grow.
Of the strip, but then putting the trees on the side,
don't putting trees in it, it's kind of counterintuitive. It just doesn't achieve what I think you're.
We're still planning on putting trees in the islands,
right?
Just not in the strips. We're eliminating the strips. That's our intention, is to eliminate the red strips. So
okay,
but we will have. Can you go to your landscape plan that shows
a pretty colorful one?
The color one?
Yeah, the colorful one. There you go. So, I don't know how we get that on screen, but this shows our proposed landscape with the trees in the end islands.
Right.
But just not down the strips. And then we would plant to plan west and plan south as the buffer to still use those trees that are required, but just in a better location so we can get as many spots.
Rather than them being placed in these locations.
Okay.
So the primary objective is to remove the perpendicular strip?
That's correct. We're not, again, the proposal is not to reduce the landscape. The proposal is to reduce the 5-foot land space that would be typically in between these parking spaces, in this direction, in this row, in this row, in this row.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
So, don't know if this is doable, but if you did parallel parking spaces and where those 13 are, and then on the left side of what the picture I'm looking at, on that green space in front of the retention pond, also stretched out those parallel parking spaces, you might get close to 13. I don't know if it meets I don't know how wide parallel parking space needs to be.
He's talking about.
I don't know if that compromise would work for everyone.
I'm Dana Gillette with Erdman Anthony.
Raise your right hand for me. Do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good idea, and it looks like that would work when you look at this plan, but those areas are all the banks going into these detention ponds, so they're at kind of a steep slope and not suitable for a parallel parking spot.
It's tight there. You can't.
You won't be able to get
add
into
a bunch
it,
of dirt, and then we get into more retention issues with losing retention and things of that nature.
Well,
Thank you for the good idea, though.
yeah. Okay, so there are any other comments? I mean, the recommendation of the staff is to deny. Is that correct? Okay. Any other comments, questions? If not, I'd look for a motion. Oh, I'm sorry, the public, yes. Are there any cards, Diane?
No, Mayor.
Ray, any hands raised? I thought you were counting the hands. Can we get the question or comment? Is there a way to?
Okay, the person out there that has their hand up, you'll have to unmute your mic to speak. It doesn't have a name, it just says alphabetically. Raised hand. They're not answering.
Okay, all right. And we'll take that as a no. And so are there any public comments on this agenda item at this point? If not, then I'll turn to the.
Can I just add
Yes, you
something? I mean, if we're going to, is this something that we need to table to reevaluate for the 5th time and go through all this and try to figure out an answer? What I don't want to do is have this denied and then we have to go through approval process for 5 more months. So is this something we need to table for another month and bring it back to the commission with this possible solution?
I think that's definitely possible with the request of the applicant.
The council could postpone, there's an option in the code to postpone it back to TSR, put it back into TSR for the applicant and staff to work.
Okay.
If that's what the applicant is in agreement with doing.
I'm not sure.
Could we give
I mean, that's what we would do if you guys, I mean, if we go back to TSR, then we're looking at another 3 or 4 months worth of design here, and we can't afford to go for 3 or 4 months of design. What I would like to do is come back with and take some of Bradford's suggestions into what we can do with this pond, and maybe we can get away. I need to go back, I don't have the exact numbers, I need to go back to our warehouse distribution staff and find out exactly how many we can afford to lose. And maybe we can make this work for Bradford and for the staffs without losing another 5 months.
So you would like to actually go back to our planner and examine
Could we come back
some.
with another design for next month's meeting that takes into account the suggestions that were made tonight, if I can find out if those numbers, parking-wise, work for us?
You could postpone it to a time certain of your next council meeting. That would not allow for any revision to the
Okay.
plans. They would just have to come back to that meeting
All right.
with whatever answers he doesn't have or whatever numbers he doesn't have tonight.
May I, well, let me ask Counsel, and I understand exactly your perspective because it's, let's not kick the can down the road and we're kind of still going to the same spot. So I understand you to move forward. Is it possible for us to give him feedback now? You guys can converse and then come back with, so that we can make a motion with these, if we do have any alterations to it?
Can I ask, if you deny the landscape waiver, can you approve the site plan with the condition that the plans sent to staff for certification meet our code with the perpendicular landscape aisles, and then they would lose no time?
Even if the landscape waiver is denied, the next application is a site plan. That could be approved with the condition that the required perpendicular island is put in the site plan. So yes, the next item wouldn't be postponed because of that, but go ahead, Bradford.
Let me add to that, Mitty. So if we do make this a condition of approval, that because it sounds like there may be some uncertainty as to whether you can make it work, right? So what I would suggest is that you approve the site plan with those parking spaces removed as a condition of approval, that they will remove them, right? And then so that if it can't work and you guys would like to reconsider it, it would be MCIC to that condition that you eliminate that condition to remove those parking spaces.
Well, I think any motion to approve the site plan would have to be with the condition that the site plan meet the code, not removal of the 13 spaces, but that the perpendicular islands are put back in the code.
Right.
That I think would be required for the site plan approval motion.
So now that's a discussion about the next agenda item, though.
Right, but I think Ray's question was, can the next item still go forward if there's a postponement of the landscape waiver? And that answer is yes, because that can be conditioned. Correct.
Right, absolutely.
And I'm just wondering, though, if we can give him some sort of feedback, so say, this is what we would approve, maybe the 5 of us can say this is what we agree to with these conditions, and then they can converse right now and say, yes, we will make those changes, and then we could just approve it all at once. I don't know if we can tell them, like...
Well, I think what I heard the applicant say is that he's not in a position to tell you how many spaces can go away. So you've given him feedback. You can give him additional feedback as to what changes you would be amenable to when they come back to you, but I'm not sure that what I heard him say is that he doesn't have the information to tell you how many spaces can go away in terms of compromise.
Well, I think what they were saying is they're asking for what their golden crown of what they would like is, but they're willing to, there's always room for negotiation. So that's why I was just, that's what I heard.
Well, that may be the case, but at the same time, if you don't know what the absolute minimum is that works for you, then I'm sensing that seems to be the problem right now. So if you don't know that number, you're going to be agreeing to something that might not work.
Correct. So that's why I offered to table it, but, to Bradford's, what he said of you approving with the contingent upon type deal, that would be, and then we could work that out. Because really, to be honest, the parking lot is not the hugest issue right now. It's building the building, which is the next phase that we're going to talk about. So that's where we're really time crunched. And we have months that we can work out the parking lot, because I don't need the parking lot till the building's built.
So the action on this could be a postponement to a time certain?
On the landscape waiver application, correct.
Okay. If that makes sense, then I'd look for a motion.
Well, no, there isn't going to be a motion then if he holds it, but the question is time certain, because they don't know when they're going to, he's saying 3 to 4 months, it's not specific, so do you make it?
The thing is, he doesn't want to go back into TSR because he doesn't want to lose 3 or 4 months. He's requesting postponement to your next meeting for reconsideration of the landscape waiver.
I just heard something different.
No, this is definitely a postponement to December 19th.
That's my understanding.
Let's confirm that with him, because that's not what I heard.
Right, exactly. I think that, so I think the best thing we would prefer, I think, to move forward, because I think what we're looking at too, I think that the suggestion made by Ray is a good one. I think that if it's really only those 13 spaces on the bottom would probably be the maximum I think we'd have to modify. if Ms. Gillette here can help us readjust some retention here.
Right, so
think
I
we
don't know
could
if you
work to
can
make that
see them, can you see a mouse if I move?
Yeah.
Okay. So we take out this row here, is that what the suggestion is? And then this dry pond that we have here, it'll get squeezed, so it'll become like a long, skinny swale, pointy swale that's shallower. And then we'd add the 5-foot strips and put all the trees in them in the middle of the parking lot, so the trees around the edge would not be, around the edge, they'd be in the middle of the parking lot.
You could always add them to the edge, just
No, I don't think so.
So if we can state that succinctly, so it could be made into a motion?
Well, I think that if you want to touch on it, because I think it's really just, we're going to essentially meet code.
That's exactly what I was just going to say. So if they're in agreement with that,
Waiver
the
request.
condition is on the next application, the landscape waiver request would actually go away.
Right. So we would not have a waiver request anymore. We would just simply be meeting the code criteria, and so there would be no.
So then you would be withdrawing that?
Way to do it.
If you're in agreement to remove those 13 spaces and make the adjustment, then on the next application, that would be a condition of that approval if there's to be approval, and the landscape waiver would become moot.
Sure. I think that's what we should do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll withdraw the waiver request.
Okay, well then that resolves that issue. There's no further action required on that agenda item, right? Okay, then we'll move on to the agenda item where we will actually deal with this entire discussion, and that is the third agenda, the third regular agenda item, which is a public hearing to consider application number 24-053 SPM AAR, an application by AI Florida Division South DC LLC, and adoption of resolution number 24-24, confirming council action. The applicant is seeking site plan modification and architectural approval to modify the previously approved site plan to reduce the Phase 2 expansion from 151,172 square feet to 67,347 square feet, accommodate a parking lot expansion, modify the landscape areas, and establish a location of required public art for a property located at 1171 North State Road 7.
And
Again, to
Mr. Mayor, the
village attorney.
applicant, thank you. The applicants remain sworn for this item, but I'll ask for council ex parte disclosures.
Staff.
Okay, so turn back to Bradford.
Great, thank you, Mayor. I'm going to abbreviate my presentation a bit because we went over a lot of what was in my presentation on the previous item. So again, here's the site. This is the previously approved site plan showing the full extent of the addition. This is what the applicant is now currently proposing, a smaller Phase 2 addition with the parking lot. This is the landscape plan. This landscape plan will be amended. Here is the architectural renderings of the addition. This here is a slide that illustrates the location of the public art and is highlighted here in green. The applicant has a public art and public places contribution obligation of $182,000 as included in the conditions of approval. In reviewing this petition, village staff considered conformity with Chapter 26 of Village Code of Ordinances, specifically that the site meets the village code as it pertains to parcel size, parcel width, setbacks, pervious areas, parking requirements, landscape areas, and overall building height. And staff is recommending approval of this application, and the Planning and Zoning Commission considered this application on October 22nd and recommended approval by a vote of 5-0 with the condition that the applicant add required landscaping along the west and the south buffers. And again, staff is recommending approval. I'll turn the floor back over to you, Mayor. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So any additional comments?
Yeah, again, Brian Terry. I guess a couple points of clarification, and just so I make sure I understand, I think the intention here is that this obtains the site plan approval this evening, assuming everybody is affirmative on that. We then submit our final plans to you with the revisions to the site plan, the landscape plan, probably the drainage plan would have to be amended. but it's not going back to TRC. It's just for final approval, essentially.
Correct.
Right?
You'll get instructions to upload the documents into Project Docs. There is a step that provides for that if there were changes made by council, that those documents could be uploaded, and so you'll upload those.
Okay. And then I guess the last point, I think I just heard you say that the condition about adding additional landscaping to the west and the south, I think we would remove that condition or that.
I had to state what their recommendation was. So that was the Planning and Zoning Commission's.
Right.
I couldn't not include that in how they voted.
Again, because of what planning and zoning, the intention was those trees were going to get moved because there was no landscape strips. We would like that recommendation to come off so that we're not having to provide the trees within the landscape strips in the parking lot and then additionally add more trees on the west and the south. You understand?
Mine was denied.
I think I do. Council, have any questions?
Was withdrawn, and that was not staff's recommendation. That was a planning and zoning.
Right. So that doesn't really apply. Right, okay.
I just have a question, though, Mitty, is the landscape buffer then between the parking and the west to where the willows are, is there still adequate buffer there without the additional? Is that maybe what P&Z was thinking, is let's move it over there?
They were thinking that was a compromise. So if their recommendation was approval with the condition that the landscaping on the prior item wasn't going to be removed, it was just going to be moved because there was residents at that meeting who were concerned about the buffer. But what was discussed at Planning and Zoning also is that there's an approved landscape plan for that site. The landscape was approved by this body. The buffer was approved. It's a significant buffer. So and what was told to the applicant at P&Z is if there's any deficiencies, that's a code enforcement issue. There's an approved landscape plan. If it's not planted today in accordance with that plan, that's a code enforcement issue that the village will address. But as the applicant just said, that condition was directly tied to removal of the perpendicular divider strip, just relocating the landscape.
And then I understand. I just want to make sure that those residents that did have the concern is that their concern is still met where it's not going to be an issue, because they might have said, like, okay, we're fine because the recommendation was to move those trees over to that buffer.
And the residents were told at Planning and Zoning that if there have been any lapses in trees, if there's any dead or dying vegetation, that's going to be addressed through code enforcement. But they're still subject to the approved plan. That's still in place, in full force and effect.
And so we had that discussion when we originally approved the plan, and so far as adequate buffer. Right.
It's installed as designed.
Right. Okay. So any other questions or discussion from the council at this point? If not, yes.
You know, for that meeting, the resident, I don't think she was happy when she left to answer Councilwoman Samos's question. I think her exact words were, it looks like a concrete jungle from their side where they live, looking out their back, their back door. So definitely would, you know, if we're not adding that in as a condition for this item, I would definitely want to make sure code enforcement is going out to the site and making sure that it is covered as approved by this body.
Understood.
Okay.
And then I just have a quick question, and I don't know who has access to whichever one, but can you use a cursor and tell me where the art in public places is? I know where it showed on there is by the retention pond in the back. Oh, it's in the very front.
No,
Okay,
it's out in front.
gotcha. Thank
It's out
you.
in front. Okay, any other?
One comment, if I could, Mr. Mayor. So if there is action by the council to approve this, it would need to be with the condition that all plans are revised to add in the 5-foot wide perpendicular divider strip that was withdrawn in the prior application, such that all plans conform with village code. That would need, and you don't have to restate what I just said. You could just say with the condition as stated by the village attorney. But that does need to be a condition of approval because the plans that are submitted as part of this record do not have that perpendicular divider strip or the landscaping.
We agree with that.
Okay. All right, that's a lot of words. It's a lot of words. Okay, so any other comments, discussion from the council? If not, I'll look for public comment on this item.
No, Mayor.
No cards, hands raised. It's still up?
No. I am confused, though, because it says there's 2 there, and nobody's showing up in the boxes, so I got excited there for a minute when I thought a hand was raised.
Light up when you saw that. Anyone else in the public have any comments at this point on that agenda item? Okay. If not, Are there any final comments from the members of the council? If not, then I will entertain a motion and a second on this agenda item.
I'll make a motion, we accept, that we approve regular agenda item number 3 with the condition that was stated by village attorney.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. And we are moving on to regular agenda item number 4. I haven't lost track of where I am. I think that's it. 4. A public hearing to consider application number 24-040 Z-Tex and ordinance number 1052, an application by Gunster on behalf of West Palm Radiation Associates, LLC, amending the village's zoning code to amend sections 26-22 and 26-87 of the village code to add a definition for the term veterinary oncology center, no overnight stay, and add veterinary oncology centers, no overnight stay as a special exception use within the office commercial CO zoning district, and add entirely new section 26-75.8 veterinary oncology centers, no overnight stays within the office commercial CO zoning district to provide for supplemental land use regulations for this use. Village attorney?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, there's an error on your agenda. This one is actually legislative, so Bradford can begin. I don't need to do anything on this one.
Okay. So to you, Bradford.
Great job. Good presentation, Ron. So the veterinary oncology, okay, so this veterinary oncology center, there will be no overnight stays. I'm going to jump right into the definition. No overnight stay, a facility established to provide examination, diagnostic, and cancer treatment services for domestic animals kept for pleasure rather than for commercial purposes. Treatment services may include, but is not limited to, surgery, chemotherapy, radiation therapy, immunotherapy, or palliative care. The facility may not be used for overnight boarding. The building proposed to house the veterinary oncology center shall contain a radiation vault. Prior to the issuance of certificate of occupancy, the radiation vault shall be certified as required by the Florida Department of Health Bureau of Radiation Control. The office veterinarian or other employee shall be licensed or certified as required by the Florida Department of Health to operate radiation equipment. The veterinarian shall be certified as a radiation oncologist by the American College of Veterinary Radiology, American College of Veterinary Internal Medicine, or an equivalent certification organization. Services shall be provided to domesticated animals. The treatment of wild animals or farm animals or livestock shall be prohibited. All activities shall occur within an enclosed building. An indoor facility shall be provided for the purpose of allowing pets to go to the bathroom. The exterior of all buildings and structures shall be kept free of all unsanitary conditions. The local planning agency considered this application on October 22nd, and recommended approval by a vote of 5-0, and staff is recommending approval of this text amendment. And I'm going to go back a couple of slides, because what I did forget to mention is that this application, although it is village-wide, the applicant does anticipate coming in, if this ordinance is passed, to occupy this building here that's highlighted or outlined in blue. This building does contain one of those radiation vaults, which I understand is rare in Palm Beach County. There's only a handful of them, and this is one of them. You essentially, given the walls, I think, have to be 8 feet thick. So you're essentially building the building around this vault. And so this is one of the few that we have. And with that being said, Mayor, I'll turn the floor back over to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bradford. Would the applicant to that.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. My name's John Roach. I'm an in-house urban planner with the Gunster Law Firm in West Palm. With me this evening is Brian Seymour, land use attorney and colleague at Gunster. We're excited to be before you this evening with the proposed text amendment. Before I get into, or actually Mr. Bradford went through all the details already with regards to the specific language, but we felt like it's important to provide you a little more detailed context in which our application is proposed. So first is that it would allow veterinary oncology centers focused on the treatment of cancer in animals within the office commercial zoning district as a special exception. It would be explicitly, as Mr. Bradford indicated, without overnight stay and for domesticated animals. And while the text amendment before you applies to the office commercial zoning district across the entire village, again, I want to provide a little more specific context. First, I want to clarify with regards to the building that is proposed. The way the property appraiser's information has it, that building is actually outlined, that Mr. Bradford pointed out is outlined separately. Within this parcel, which I have shown here in red, there are multiple buildings. The exact one that we are proposing to locate the use is this far one here on the western side of the property. That address is 12993 Palms West Parkway. So just want to clarify with regards to the specific building. And as Mr. Bradford did indicate, it does have an existing radiation vault, which, yes, is very rare to have within a building. So with regards to that context, if the text amendment were approved by the council, we would be back before you in the form of a special exception application, as well as presenting to the Planning and Zoning Advisory Board for this specific building and for this specific property. These are pictures of that building as of this morning. Approximately 9,000 square feet, the northern 9,000 square feet of that building, or approximately 2/3 or more, was once the location of Palms West Radiation Therapy. They have since closed. There is one other tenant within there, which is the Hematology Oncology Associates. Our client is proposing to utilize the space that has been vacated. It was previously used for human oncology. They are proposing to use it for oncology treatment of domesticated animals. I talked about that existing tenant. Our client has spoke with them previously, so they are aware of the proposal and have not indicated any concerns. So at the front of the building, which are the two pictures on the left here, there are separate entrances into those two tenant spaces. In addition to that, on the eastern facade, or the rear of the building, there are also two separate dedicated entrances into each of those spaces. The one on the back is actually separated by 45, 50 feet or so between those two entrances. Currently within the state, there are only 9 such facilities that are licensed and have veterinary oncology treatment and radiation treatment on site. There may be other satellite offices, but in terms of receiving the actual radiation treatment on site, there are only 9 facilities within the state. One of those facilities is located within Palm Beach County. It's the Emergency Veterinary Hospital on Forest Hill Boulevard, just east of Military Trail between Congress and Military. So our client has seen this as a unique opportunity and an exciting opportunity to bring this resource to the village and to serve the residents of the village and the surrounding communities. So the first step in this process, because the code didn't address the use at all, it does allow veterinarian clinics, it allows animal hospitals within the commercial zone, general commercial zoning district, as well as the mixed use district and so forth. But it does not allow the veterinarian oncology and that specific use. It doesn't even address the use at all. So the first step that we are coming before you with is the text amendment that Mr. Bradford outlined. As shown on the screen and Mr. Bradford indicated, we provided a very narrowly tailored definition. so that we're clearly calling out what this use is, and that it's not a general veterinarian clinic where you have someone bringing in their pet on a frequent basis just for their vaccinations and things like that. This is specific to the cancer treatment of domesticated animals, and again, with no overnight stay. By being a special exception use, we worked with staff in developing the supplemental regulations that Mr. Bradford spoke of, and I'm not going to go into details as he went through each one of them, but I will call out the first one that we feel is the most important. It is with regards to the existing radiation vault. The first supplemental standard requires that before the special exception application is even filed with the village, that the radiation vault has to be on premise. What that does is that ensures that the treatment can occur there. It ensures that there is an investment in that property, but also ensures that the number of these types of facilities are going to be very limited due to the expense and the amount of work and effort that goes into having one of these installed. So we feel like with that, as well as the other additional standards, that we have sufficiently addressed all the concerns the staff has expressed about other tenants on the property, as well as surrounding property owners, and again, are excited to bring this before you. So that concludes my presentation. Our client's excited, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Council have any questions for the applicant? Comments?
I'll go real quick. We talked about this. Do you know how many other, and maybe Bradford, you can answer this, either one of you, how many more oncology vaults that we have in the village? Because I know we talked about the cost factor of building one and everything that goes with it. So I'm assuming it's connected to a hospital or to a medical site.
Do you want to answer?
Well, some of that I can answer.
Or give me a ballpark.
For the record, Brian Seymour, attorney for the applicant. I have a ballpark, but it's in West Palm Beach.
Yes.
So I don't think
so
I can.
you don't like
I
that
can't
one.
relocate
but
that.
But it's double duty,
unfortunately.
so you might not want that one.
I don't know how many there are, but it will be specific to an oncology practice.
Right.
It is very rare.
Right.
Typically, they're in the hospitals, but
Yeah.
they're not solely. So that's one of the reasons that this is a unique circumstance.
Okay.
I can't tell you there are none other in the village because we didn't do a full survey.
Okay.
But I would be very surprised. I do know, only because of what I do for a living, everybody calls me about something, that someone's trying to figure out a way to do one in Palm Beach Gardens, and they can't because it's so difficult to find the building, the space, how heavy everything is. So I do think it's very difficult to put. So I suspect that if you had one more outside of the actual hospital, I'd be surprised.
Okay, and then we did talk about this, and I know it was, I think, number 5 on Bradford's list. We talked about domesticated animals, and there was a list of, it also included rodents and birds and everything. So do we have an idea of, it's not just cats and dogs, it's...
So it isn't just cats and dogs, but it is just cats and dogs in the sense that a fish doesn't go, right? We're trying to use that as an examples of what constitutes domesticated specifically versus the non-domesticated typically related to a farm. So you're not going to see someone saying, well, the pig is my pet.
And that's what we talked about, so, or the duck or the snake.
That's why that's there that way.
Yeah, okay. Just so it doesn't turn into Animal Farm and everybody's coming in like that, that's.
If they have cancer,
Well, that's what I'm saying, though, is that but because it says domesticated, so.
Cancer, if a turtle has cancer and they can get it taken care of, you might see a turtle.
Right.
But the point was that you're not going to see what are typically the sort of more, like you said, the farm animal types. Because that's where you get, even if they're domesticated, they tend to be less sanitary, if you will.
Okay.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any other questions, discussion? Any other members? So one of the things I asked about, and you answered the question, which was the likelihood of encounters of people who aren't there for that purpose. And you mentioned that there are 2 separate entrances.
Correct.
And that was basically a concern. I mean, putting into an area where you wouldn't expect to find animals, the likelihood of that gets reduced by the separate entrances. And you said 2/3 of that entire building will be this facility. Is that right?
Approximately, yeah. The space that would be the subject of this use is approximately 9,000 square feet, which is about 2/3 of this structure. So if you look at the front picture in the lower left-hand corner, from the front door to the left of the image, that is the space that would be occupied by our client's business.
Okay, all right. But it's interesting that also you said there was 9 of these facilities within a state, and yet here we are, one in Wellington and one potentially here in Royal Palm Beach. It's kind of an interesting coincidence. Are there any other comments or questions? If not, I will ask if there are any public comments. None raised? We still got the hands raised? No. I know it's a disappointment. Anyone else in the public care to make a comment on this agenda item? If not, then I will accept a motion and a second.
I make a motion to approve regular agenda item number 4.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No, so it passes unanimously. Congratulations, good luck. Thank you.
Good luck, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, so 5th agenda item, is that right?
Skipping that one. Did you say that one was skipped?
The public hearing to consider application 24-051FP, an application by WGI, Inc., and adoption of resolution number 24-27 confirming council action. The applicant is seeking final plat approval to plat 12.28 plus or minus acres of land for a property located on the northwest corner of Okeechobee Boulevard and Royal Palm Beach Boulevard. Turn to Bradford for a presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. We're recommending that this be postponed to a time certain of December 19th. We were still waiting on a few more documents from the applicant. We never received those documents, so I'm certain we don't have to advertise and we don't have to do the mail outs again. So if it's postponed to a time certain of December 19th, then that's what we're recommending.
All right, so it's an expeditious way to handle it. So if there are any questions, if not, entertain a motion to postpone to a time certain of December 19th.
Motion to approve the postponement of regular agenda item R5 to a time certain of December 19th, 2024.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Bradford. The 6th regular agenda item is a public hearing for second reading and adoption of ordinance number 1053, providing for the Village of Royal Palm Beach's continued inclusion in the Palm Beach County Fire Rescue Municipal Service, and you all have stuck around for a long time, the MSTU, for the provision of fire protection, fire rescue, and advanced life support or similar emergency services, fire code enforcement, and other necessary and incidental services. Village Attorney, would you read the ordinance? Is that?
Read the title of the ordinance.
Please.
Ordinance 1053, an ordinance of the Village Council of the Village of Royal Palm Beach, Florida, amending Chapter 10 Finance and Taxation, Article 8, inclusion of village boundaries in the Palm Beach County Fire Rescue Municipal Service Taxing Unit, Section 10-111, provide for the village's consent to the inclusion of the entire territory within the Village of Royal Palm Beach's municipal boundaries in the Palm Beach County's Fire Rescue Municipal Service Taxing Unit for the fire rescue, fire protection, advanced life support, or similar emergency services, fire code enforcement, and other necessary and incidental services, providing for intent, purpose, consent, duration, providing repeal of ordinances in conflict, providing severability, codification, effective date, knowledge, and limitation on ethical or millage rate for municipal purposes. This is second reading, fairly housekeeping in nature. Mayor, the village was included in the MSTU back in 2004. Current ordinance that provides for that inclusion is scheduled to expire December 31st of this year. This ordinance would extend the village's inclusion into the MSTU through December 31st of 2034.
Okay, Council have any comments, questions? If not, are there any public Comments? Diane?
No, Mayor.
Hands raised? Ray?
No, Mayor.
Not seeing any public comments. Any public comments in the room? If not, then I will look for a motion and a second on this agenda item.
I make a motion to approve regular agenda item number 6.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. And thank you for your service. And we look forward to continued outstanding service. Thank you. Okay, moving on to regular agenda item number 7. It's a public hearing for second reading and adoption of ordinance number 1050, amending Village Code Chapter 22, subdivision of land at various sections within Articles 1 through 3 to comply with Section 177.073. Florida statutes are expedited approval of residential building permits before a final plat is recorded. Village attorney to read the ordinance title.
For the record, Mayor, this is ordinance 1050, ordinance of the Village Council of Royal Palm Beach, Florida, Chapter 22, subdivision of land, code of ordinances of the Village of Royal Palm Beach, in various sections within Articles 1 through 3 to comply with Section 177.073 Florida statutes entitled expedited approval of residential building permit before a final plat is required and recorded, providing conflicts clause, severability clause, authority to clarify effective date and for other purposes. This is second reading in conformance with Village's code, state law regarding.
Okay, any comments or questions from council at this point? If not, any public
No, Mayor.
comments cards? Hands raised, Ray?
No, Mayor.
Comments from the council? If not, I will look for a motion and a second.
I make a motion to approve regular agenda item number 7.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you all very much. Moving on to regular agenda item number 8, which is a public hearing for the first reading and approval of ordinance number 1054, amending Chapter 11.5 floodplain management to update the date of the flood insurance study and flood insurance rate maps and reformat local amendments to the Florida Building Code. Is there, again?
Mayor, if I may read the title into the record, this is ordinance 1054, an ordinance of the Village Council of Village of Royal Palm Beach, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances at Chapter 11.5 floodplain management to update the dates of the flood insurance study and flood insurance rate maps, and reformat local amendments to the Florida Building Code, providing that each and every other section and subsection of Chapter 11.5 shall remain in full force and effect as previously adopted, providing conflicts clause, severability clause, authority to codify an effective date and further purposes. This is first reading, recognizes the new floodplain map and rate study, which go into effect on December 20th. In order for village residents to be able to continue to participate in the National Flood Insurance Program, the village is required to adopt this ordinance. It also provides for some cleanup and reformatting at the suggestion of FEMA.
Is there any comments or discussion from the council? If not, is there, Diane, are there any public comment?
No,
cards?
Mayor.
Hands raised, Ray?
No, there aren't. Chris had his mic on. He was getting ready to say something, but Keith did such a good job that he turned his mic off.
I'm sorry.
I would hate for him to be sitting there without an opportunity to express
He has been
himself.
sitting there since
Yes.
6:30.
Okay, that's good. So any final comments or discussion from the council? If not, I'll look for a motion and a second.
Motion to approve regular agenda item 8.
And a second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? It passes unanimously. Thank you. The final agenda item. This is what you've been waiting for, or at least Mr. Hill has been waiting for. It is a presentation of the Village of Royal Palm Beach Code Enforcement Division. It's an overview and a discussion of operational procedures. Where did Ray go? He walked out. I was going to turn to him and say, does the village manager have any comments? He walked out. I'll take that as a no. And we will turn to Mr. Rob Hill and company for the presentation. I believe this was an item that came up during our strategic planning session. We discussed this. We thank you all for your patience.
Did it just say 40 slides?
First of all, turn on my mic. But I just want to let you know, we echo the same sentiment and the deepness and the loss of these families and friends that were all involved with that accident today. So, our heart goes out to them. You saved the best for last. Could we all stand up, turn to the left, and introduce you? No, you've all been through all that. Anyway, I want to thank you for the opportunity to be out here today and introduce you guys to our code enforcement team and go kind of overview of our process and kind of detail some of the things that you may not be clear on or may not be sure of. So here's our team code enforcement. We have Linda Walker, Community Development Administrator, Margaret Hancoat, our Code Officer 3, Andrew Armienti, Code Officer 2, and Anthony Sandlin, Code Officer 2 as well. I'd also like to recognize our collaboration with Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office. They provide us extra support in the evening hours, barking dogs and things that you may not hear that we're not able to respond to. The captain and his team are very helpful in that regard. Our mission statement, a little bit different from the villages. Ours is a little bit directed towards, we want to provide a proactive environment encouraging voluntary compliance of village codes and standards governing aesthetics, appearance, property use, and permitting. And we're trying to establish the understanding with the property owners, residents, business owners, and code enforcement have the same goals is key to our mission. And as you'll hear tonight, echoed, communication is what really makes that happen. I also wanted to point out that this same code enforcement team is essential when we have a hurricane response, as we go out and to do the damage assessment for all the private, residential, and commercial property within the village within a 24-hour period. As you know, we're governed by the Florida statutes under Chapter 162. The Local Government Code Enforcement Board provides the guidelines and adoption of municipal codes, right of entry, and violation procedures, and so on that help us perform our code enforcement. As you know, we have a diverse, mature, and changing village here, and ranging from 1960 to 65 years now. The pictures I provide you kind of show that disparity in development. We have different generational values, needs, and behaviors, different lot sizes and home sizes, and we're transitioning with new residents all the time. Also, we've been exposed to several economic changes. Some have been downturns, some have been upturns, valuation changes. I explained in discussions with Ray that, as that pendulum swings to the extreme on either side, it hurts the housing element and code enforcement when you have elderly parents being taken care of at home or adult children that are unable to find housing and what have you at that time. We feel like we have the direction from you and the manager to provide a caring, compassionate, and effective code enforcement. We take that caring approach and encourage speaking with our residents, providing courtesy notices and clear direction for our corrections towards voluntary compliance. Our operations and procedure, you'll see our ability to provide extended time frames and frequent re-inspections is the compassionate element that it makes our code enforcement effective. We want to encourage a buy-in understanding and how we can work together to maintain property values, preserve our quality of life, and keep our communities safe. Recently in this budget year, you may recall we had our chance to do a little bit of reorganization. With that, we created within our community development administrator that you'll meet her a little bit later on. And with that, we feel like we've provided a better balance of service delivery and also empowered our officers. It's provided us the opportunity to have an additional code enforcement officer and a permit technician within code enforcement, within community development with minimal budget impact. With these code enforcement officers working independently and handling their in-office duties as well, it provides what we feel is a better direct communication with our customers so that when they do reach out to have a question or a concern, they're able to speak to that officer that is directly involved with their issue and their situation. Our municipal code, as you know, we have a municipal code, and what I'm kind of pointing out here is that same common standards and guidelines that give us the predictable expectation of our use and maintenance of properties, we don't leave as just a stagnant document. We're continually listening for feedback as they approach us, Quite often, we get some of that feedback from our strategic plan citizen summit that we incorporate into, and what we've brought before you, you may recall things as artificial turf, fences, shutters, just elements that kind of change with the needs of our community and are just make our ability to make things predictable and better all around. Direct communication, questions, concerns, or complaints. Community development is just right here on the right from 8 to 5 from Monday through Friday. People can email us, phone, walk in, send us a letter. And we also perform our daily observations Monday through Friday, weekend field observations, and we rotate early evening observations as well. I'd like to introduce you to Anthony Sandlin, our Code Enforcement 2. He'd like to go over some of the outline here with our daily field operations. Anthony?
Good evening, Council. Good evening, Mayor and Council members. I'm Anthony Sandlin, and I'm here to explain some of the daily field observations we do and just the whole code enforcement process from point A to point B in the beginning. Communication is the key, so we encourage our residents to come in, email, call, all those type of things. So usually when we come in the mornings, especially on the weekends, because that's when we have a lot of the messages from residents and so on and so forth. We go out and check those. We proactively patrol our areas. We have to because we want to catch the problem before it starts. We always try to do everything in a timely manner as far as the courtesy notice phase. With the courtesy notice, if we observe the violation, we'll write that, give them basically 10 days to come into compliance. Some people we give a little longer depending on their situations because we know the situation is different for everyone. Within that 10 days, if we come back out to do a reinspection and that violation is not in compliance, we then will do a regular notice of violation and hearing, send that out, give them actually more time after that, which is like a 10, 20-day process. It's at our discretion. As far as mail coming back, when we send out that mail, if it comes back unclaimed, which is with the return receipt, the green card, not signed, usually when that happens, we'll go out and post a notice. So we're actually giving them more time after that because we, like Rob said, our goal is voluntary compliance. If we can get that, our job is complete. As far as, I would say the highlight of my day is meeting with the residents because here is a point where you can actually get something accomplished because educating the resident about what's going on is way better than just sending a notice and all this type of stuff because a lot of people feel like, well, code enforcement isn't doing that, or they're doing too much. So if I can get out and educate you and tell you exactly what I need done and what makes the village look better, our goal is accomplished. Some violations take precedence over others. As far as our life safety and health issues, that would be something like a unsecured pool or something with some real high grass. Of course, we don't want those dangerous, hazardous type of things for our residents. And also, I want to say that Royal Palm is a beautiful place. So our intent with this whole team is to keep it that way. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'd also like to introduce you to Andrew Armiente, Code Enforcement 2. He's like to go over some of our evening and weekend observations.
Thank you, Rob. Good evening, Council. Appreciate your time this evening. I'm going to first discuss what we do for our evening field observations. Our objective is to observe high-priority violations that we're not able to see during normal business hours. That priority starts with prohibited vehicles. An example of prohibited vehicle would be food trucks, tow trucks, limousines. Generally, we see them coming home from work after hours. They're parking in the front lawn. They're parking in the backyard. And during regular business hours, we're not able to see that. So that's an important aspect of the evening shift. I will also focus on trailers that aren't parked to code, so trailers that are parked in the front yard or backyard as well, but also on the swell, and that would also include RVs. So that's something that we tend to focus on the evening shift. Time efficiency is also very important. When we're, excuse me, out in the field during regular business hours, we will post the courtesy notice. But during the evening shift, we'll take a picture, and then the following day, we'll mail it out. So that enables us to get more done during that time period and to account for as many violations as we can during that time. For our weekend shift, we have a set agenda. In the morning, our agenda focuses on commercial sweeps. So we'll look for unpermitted special events, prohibited signs, recreational vehicles or trucks parking overnight, and those are issues that we'll address. And as I'm going through the commercial sweep, I'm also taking care of all signs that are put in the right of way and things along that line. So I'm able to do two things at once and get as much done in the morning as possible. The village sign sweep is something that's done in the afternoon as well during my residential sweep, looking for work without a permit. So anytime I see signs, whether it's in the morning or the afternoon, I'm focused on that in the evening shift. Does anybody have any questions about the evening or the weekend?
Anybody have any questions? No, thank you.
Thank you, Counsel.
Lastly, I'd like to introduce Margaret Hancote, our Code Enforcement 3. She'll go over some of our daily office work and meeting prep.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council and others. As you can see on the screen, a breakdown of some of our daily office and meeting operations from speaking with our residents, as we try to do this from the start, leaving a courtesy notice, and throughout the process, communicating with the residents. If they call us, email us, come into the office, it is key to get compliance because then you can actually explain to them exactly what you're talking about. And that's why we do try, and initially, when we leave the courtesy notice to knock on the door, is to talk to our residents. Processing paperwork, checking permit status for residential as well as commercial properties. We prepare all our own mail that is generated throughout our casework. Document all our phone calls, emails, notes, pictures, etc. If compliance is not achieved and it moves to a violation, we send that along with a notice of hearing, and then we also prepare all our documents that we need for hearing as well. We prepare our own agenda, our PowerPoint, we download our pictures, we do our own PowerPoint presentation during the special magistrate hearing, which then shows the resident and special magistrate exactly what we're talking about. After hearing, we do proofread all our orders, make sure they're all correct before we mail them out. And that narrows it down briefly, but that's the gist of it. So
Right.
thank you.
Well,
Any
thank you.
questions on those?
Any questions?
Thank
No.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
As you heard, communication is the key. So we rely on several of our communication outreach documents here. We have our code enforcement handbook that we're very proud of, and we hand out as frequently as we can. It has our most common code violations in there. You'll also see that our officers have their direct phone numbers and their email on their card and on the publication so that our customers can reach out to them directly. And then on our website, you'll see through our new resident packet and the contact department or web QA, another mechanism for them to contact and communicate with their code enforcement officers. And also we utilize the marquee signs. Perception versus reality. This is something that was kind of pulled out with the strategic plan. And we've all heard it, when people say it's too much code enforcement, why just me? Or why does code enforcement focus on such minor issues? And the reality is, the community's a changing environment. They're coming and going at different times, but they're not all there at the same time. So sometimes we will address one issue and then another one on another day. But while we do prioritize some of the minor issues, I do want to explain to you that we take notes and we document those minor things like blocking the sidewalk. If somebody tells you that they blocked the sidewalk and they were written up because their aunt was there for 1 hour, that's usually not that accurate. It's something that's been observed for several days. And we also hear that there's too little. all right? So really, it's depending on which side of the courtesy notice that you're on, if whether it's too much or too little, because the reasoning is the same. It's a moving and changing environment. We do have improved tools to track our activities, but most neighbors aren't aware of what's going on around them. We don't publicize that we've written up somebody down the street, or they may be in a fine situation, but it's always kind of a changing environment. You heard priority of violations. Just briefly to go through this quickly, top priorities: life safety, pool safety barriers, attractive nuisances, unsafe conditions, missing address numbers. Those are things that directly affect the life safety quality of our lives around here. The second priority is blight, something that's blight and affects blight immediately with your neighbor. Parking on their front yard, putting out their garbage 2 days before the garbage comes, or the condo association that shoves it all out there. You know, we're trying to address that. Prohibited vehicles, disabled vehicles. And then lastly, the aesthetic maintenance, the last priority: walls and sidewalk staining, garbage can location screening. Yes, they're an important part of it, and they are included when we do make a stop to address something with somebody, because we have learned in the past that going back and writing something now and then 2 weeks later writing something again was not effective. But going and giving somebody, if we stop for a blocked sidewalk and we say, well, your sidewalk is stained also, we're letting you know that, and your garbage can's in view, we try to give that holistic approach. Sometimes it's a success, and sometimes it goes against us, but that's just our experience. I'm going to go through this code enforcement process milestones briefly, and then Ms. Walker is going to be able to give you some more detail. We get a complaint or an officer observation. We go out and with an inspection and determination of the violation. A courtesy notice is posted, handed, verbally given, or mailed. A reinspection for compliance is then done again. At that point, if there's nothing, a violation notice goes to the property owner. There's another reinspection for compliance. Then there's a notice of hearing scheduled, all right? The hearing magistrate then gives time to comply and establishes a fine amount. Then again, there's a reinspection for compliance. Notice of fine assessment hearing provided to the property owner, and then finally and lastly, and the last thing we want is a fine assessment hearing where there's actually a fine or lien of the property attached. Those reinspection opportunities, those are the key for the communication. Those are opportunities for people to comply. And you'll see the village gives several of those, several time frames and opportunities for someone that really wants to come right in and take care of it. Historically, some annual trends we wanted to pull out and give you guys some numbers that, you know, to kind of look at. Basically, the courtesy notices, and the reason we didn't go with direct averages is because there's changes in personnel numbers, experience, and volume, so that we thought more of a trend would be better. Between 1,800 and 2,300 courtesy notices are issued a year. Greater than 50% of those are complied before there's ever a notice of violation. All right? Voluntary compliance, our goal. The total notice of violation hearings ranges between 800 and 1,000. Greater than 94% of all those courtesy notices are solved prior to that violation hearing. All right? After that, it goes to the total fine assessment of the liens that range between 35 or 60. All right, which is less than 3% of our total courtesy notices that we started with. The bottom line is 97% of our courtesy notices, our initial contacts, are resolved before anybody gets a fine. So we think that's pretty efficient. We're proud of that, and we think that it's working. And we're always looking for ways to improve, but the hard facts are 97% are completed and complied. And with that, I'd like to introduce Linda Walker, 23 years with us as our code enforcement supervisor, and now she's stepped up to be our community development administrator. She handles supervision of code enforcement and a lot of the daily reporting and monthly activities and reports that go on within the entire community development. So, Linda Walker.
All right. Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, so as you guys may or may not know, we are governed by Florida State Statute 162, which pretty much lays out the way that we're to serve notice and that so forth and so on. And there's several things that the village implemented in which helps us be friendlier in code enforcement. And one of those things is your courtesy notice. So there's many ways that people can contact us to make complaints. They'll call in by phone, they'll send an email, they'll contact a department. Sometimes they come into the office. Unfortunately, we cannot take anonymous complaints. The state statute changed, and we cannot do that unless it's a health, safety, and welfare issue. So if someone's calling to tell me a pool's exposed, I don't care what your name is, we're going to take it and move forward on it. So that's first. So once we receive one of these complaints that come in, our inspectors normally go out within 24 hours to respond to the complaint. And we're talking about a valid complaint that we can verify and that's not, health and safety. At that point in time, pictures are taken and they're put into what's called our survey, 123, and the inspector determines if there's a violation or not a violation. Many times we leave a courtesy notice even if we don't see the violation. So if I get a complaint that the dog is barking, we leave a courtesy notice to that respondent to let them know, hey, your neighbor or somebody, we don't tell them who, is saying that your dog is barking, because maybe they're unaware of it and maybe it's something that'll correct itself that way. So we take pictures when it's something that we can see to document it, and that's also loaded up into Survey 123. So we find the violation, and they are in violation, so we go up and we try to give the courtesy notice, and we can do that verbally. Sometimes they leave it written. Most of the time, we give 10 days on a courtesy notice. Now, there are some instances, if they see an exposed pool, it's getting 1 day. We're not giving you a lot of time to fix that. But that's typically what we do with that. The pictures are taken, it's put into our field maps and also into our CE module. After that time is up on your courtesy notice, the inspector goes out and does a reinspection. If the property's in compliance, it's great. We close it in the computer and we move on. If it's not in compliance, we take photos, and a notice of violation is written. And one thing that we've done is we also send out the notice of hearing with that notice of violation. We afford enough time in that notice of hearing to allow them time to comply as well as us time to post. And it just saves from having to post everything at a later date, and it just was getting messy with having things come back late because the post office sometimes will hold on to our letters for 3 months before we get them back. It's crazy. So, but this violation notice gives them additional time to cure. And with doing the notice of hearing, we actually build in additional time in that, which is what's covered into this slide as well. If we get the mail back, then we're supposed to post it, and we mail it regular mail, and we also post it here at Village Hall. That, according to state statute, says they should know by now what this is. Once that time is up, we do another reinspection. More photos are taken, and if they're not in compliance, they get put on the agenda, and then they start going through the hearing process with code enforcement. So we go to the magistrate, and the special magistrate determines if we've done everything according to Florida state statute, if the codes were correct that we cited, and if the violation does exist. If it does, he finds in our favor, and then he gives the respondent additional time to comply. Those orders also, everything is mailed out, certified mail, return receipt requested. But it's important to note that at that point in time, they still have additional time to comply. We do a reinspection based on that date that's given in the order. And then if they're in compliance, again, we issue a notice of, or affidavit of compliance, and we move on. And if they're not in compliance, that order that they had tells them that they need to come to the fine assessment hearing. And then that is the hearing that we go to, and if they're not cured, they're issued a fine. Sometimes they'll cure just before the hearing, sometimes they cure the day of that fine assessment hearing, But the key is, if they've missed that that ordered date to comply, they're probably going to be issued a fine. So at the fine assessment hearing, he'll issue the fine, and if it's not in compliance at that hearing, it will continue to accrue on a daily basis. That order is then recorded at the clerk of court, and it becomes a lien on their property. The liens are not released until the fine is paid. So one thing that Rob implemented when he came over into our department back from Public Works is he wanted annual lien letters going out to inform people that, hey, you have a lien on the property, because they would go to sell their house and then come in and say, oh, I never knew I had a lien. So we still hear that occasionally, but we do the annual lien notices, and we get very busy when those go out. So once the property is in compliance, they can call us and request a fine mitigation hearing. There's a form that they fill out. The form is online. They fill it out, they get put on the agenda, and they go in front of the magistrate. They're supposed to show the magistrate their mitigating circumstances on what kept them from coming into compliance. They were in the hospital, or they just didn't care, whatever their reason was. And the magistrate makes a judgment on that and reduces the lien based on that. Of course, we do a recovery sheet on that and try to make a recommendation, but the magistrate is the one who sits and decides on that. Most of the time, the special magistrate will reduce the lien. He gives a time set for that lien to be paid, and if it doesn't get paid by that time, it reverts back to the original amount. They're only allowed one fine mitigation, and I tell them when they apply that there's only one bite at the apple, and then if you ever watch the meetings, you'll hear me stop a respondent and say, you're only going to get this one time. I'm giving them their out to withdraw and come back at a later date if it seems like they can't pay, or the time that they're being given, they're not going to be able to meet it, because it will revert to the original amount and they can't get it reduced again. So once the fines are paid, we basically hold the lien still for about 10 days. And then our attorney will record the release of lien and send it to the Palm Beach County Clerk of Court for recording. And then that's when the lien is released. And that's our cycle.
Thank you.
Any questions or clarifications or any direction you'd like to provide?
Elena?
I'll start. Well, first of all, thank you very much for this. I know we've gone back and forth over this over the years, and either people love you or hate you. So I appreciate the presentation, because it's great just to send this link to those that are questioning the process. So it was very thorough, and I appreciate it. Thank you very much, and welcome to new staff. Congratulations, Linda, on the position. I miss Stephanie, but I hope, happy retirement for her, and thank you very much for everybody in the staff for everything that you do. I think I love the fact that we have the courtesy notice first, because that really does mean a lot, where it's, oh, okay, let me fix this. There are several of my neighbors I've spoken with, and they're like, oh, now I have to go to the magistrate. And I'm like, well, did you get the courtesy notice? Oh, yeah, I did. And then they let it go. Some of them take care of it right away, and as you said, you can get through half of them at that point. So it really is that it shows this is what we're doing, and we care about the neighborhood, and we're just looking out for everyone else. So I appreciate the work that you do, and like I said, people either love you or hate you. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. And in regards to the courtesy notice, that usually does scare people a lot too, because it says up to $250 a day. But there's really no way around that. You have to put the consequences of non-action on there, and because that's usually what we hear. They're going to fine me $250 a day, when it really just means sometimes mow your grass or put your can away, things like that. Thank you.
Rich, did you have anything?
I'd just like to thank you for the good work you do. The courtesy notices are wonderful. Unfortunately, I've gotten one before, and it's clean that sidewalk, boy, and and then, but it is good because it does maintain the look of the community, and the numbers you put up there, it's effective, 90-something%, because that's what we want. We want compliance, and screening your garbage and all the other things that make the community look much better. I appreciate you guys because, as you put up there, you guys are the devils, you're the worst, you're targeting me, all these kind of things. But then on the other side, I do hear, hey, how come this guy still got his garbage can out there? And then they do appreciate the work and want you to do what you're doing. So please keep it up. And
Well, Councilman Malintas, you've got a great team right here, and they are really the people that make the contact with the citizens directly, and that makes a big difference. And I think, we've got a good direction from you guys and Ray, and we've carried it through. And when you do get a chance to speak to people that interact with code enforcement, we just like we do, we let them vent a little bit, and they get tired of huffing and puffing, and then they kind of listen a little bit. And then we kind of remind them of the reason that they moved here in the first place was because of these endeavors. And so, maybe getting rid of the chickens or things like that isn't so out of the question. But
Is that you?
Thank you, sir.
no, but I do hear one in my neighborhood sometimes when I'm walking in the morning. I have no idea where he is.
Adam?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Being new here, I appreciate the presentation and in-depthness. Appreciate your professionalism and the support you provide to our residents. I was an elementary school principal for almost a decade. I have to believe you guys might have similar reactions I got when I would call a parent and say their kid did something and they're in trouble. So I'm sure you guys are very, very patient with them, and I appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller, and congratulations as well. Look forward to working with you.
Everybody, you guys are doing an amazing job out there. I personally want to thank Linda for, I had to get a permit for a new water heater, and she helped me go through the permitting process on the system. So that was fun. I appreciate that. But I also want to just say, as you think about, and you don't have to answer this now, as you're doing your jobs, and some of us are participating in statewide committees through the League of Cities. Any of those state statutes that need to be changed or altered or amended, one of the things that came to us in the committee that I sit on, which was it's Natural Resources and Utilities, is tree policy. And we had a really robust policy, and then the state preempted it, and so we had those we had them lessened, and now they're talking about changing them again. Anyway, all that's to say is if you think that there's policies out there that could be improved for our residents that are in line with state policy.
Well, Mr. Dusky, we hear you loud and clear, and thank you. One of the two items that we already have on our board to bring forward to the strategic plan is kind of a revisit of the landscaping and clarification because of those changes. You're telling me that they're going to do some more changes. We'd like to kind of incorporate those with something that's kind of easier to implement and for our residents to understand. And I can tell you the other thing that I want to suggest is that we're starting to have more and more problem from bleed over lighting in the residential area that we're kind of powerless against right now. So we'd like to run some of those ideas through Ray and your strategic plan.
Great, thanks.
Well, thank you all once again, especially for sticking it out this long. We really, really appreciate that. But you have a high level of tolerance anyway, just by virtue of what you do for a living. And we really appreciate that. It does make a huge difference. The idea of communications being the key and the patience that you just talked about, allowing people to vent for a while. And then you get to the point where they are listening and they recognize that they can do something to alleviate the situation. And so this is good information. It's good information for us because as we have people approach us, we can talk about 97%. We can talk about the process because now we know what the process is. And so we can help to get the word out into the community because we do oftentimes, hear complaints or concerns and that type of thing on both ends. And so we thank you all very much for your hard work and for the right approach, right?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I just want to add one thing to it, and this may help you. It has worked for me, and it's always come back positive, and that is when I have a neighbor that comes to me and says they got a courtesy notice because one of the other neighbors said something to them, I'll have to listen to that for a while, but then I'll always ask them, well, what does it say on the courtesy notice? Who does it have the person's name? Yes, it does, so-and-so name. What's it say? It says to call them. I said, well, call them. Just go ahead and do that. And that takes care of it. I don't have to deal with it after that. Usually after that, because they do deal with them, and they are very kind and courteous with the people. And then they'll go through that process, and more times than not, they'll come back and say, well, I called them. They were really nice. They told me exactly what I came out and showed me what I needed to do, and it went through. So at that step, you're really done. You don't have to call us typically. You don't just tell the people to do what the notice says, and they'll be okay.
That's good advice. Again, helpful for us so that we can help you do the job that's so important, keeping this community so beautiful. So thank you all very much for that, and thank you all for staying so long to be able to share that with us. We do appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
All right. All right. So is there any other business to come before the council tonight? If not, then this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Run, Diane, run.